All right, everybody. Welcome to this Thursday night edition of the Live Well here at Fish North Georgia. We are so glad you guys could join us tonight. We got a fantastic show all about jig fishing. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. I got one of the best guys I know in the local area, Jonathan Farmer, to hang out with us, and we're going to expose some of his secrets tonight. So, looking forward to that. We appreciate all you guys joining us. Let's go ahead and take care of the business side of these things with our sponsors. Trent and the guys over at Sonar Pros. Hey, guys, listen. You hear me say it all the time. If you want it done right, you want it done the best, Sonar Pros. That's the place to take it to. 770-530-4505. Got the new place. Going to have a kind of a grand opening special event once they get everything put into place and get the retail side. But, again, nobody better than Trent and the guys over there. And, of course, if you're on Lake Lanier and you want to go catch giant spotted bass, you want to see how it's done, especially your sonar game, you got to go with Kevin Underwood of Lipsticker Fishing. I can tell you it was one of the best things I ever did was fish a tournament with this guy, just to sit back and watch how he, uses the equipment. Let's just say like that. So book you a trip with Kevin right there. You can get him on Facebook or you can go to www.lipstickerfishing.com. And then we've got the best rod sleeve on the market. And what I love is seeing a lot of these local guys posting pictures now. They all got the Evolve rod sleeves. We got them here at Fish North Georgia. I'm telling you, they float. Your hooks don't get hooked into them. They take care of your rod better than anything I've ever seen. And they're so much better than those cheap ones out there. So Evolve rod sleeves. And then if you're in the kayak game, whether it's fishing, whether it's paddle sports, whatever, Festive Water Paddle Sports right there on Highway 369. Check them out at www.festivewater.com. They're getting into the fishing side of things too as well at their location. Great guys. And like I said, even if you're into that yoga stuff out there on the water, Festive Water can set you up. And then I talked about it the other night, the best lure retriever on the market, the Money Saver lure retriever. Had some guys actually order some from when we talked about it the other night on the show. I'm telling you, there's no better lure retriever on the market. All these expensive baits, you get it hung, you don't own a tackle shop, you got to get it back. The Money Saver lure retriever is the product for you. And we got our buddies up here in Jasper, Georgia, right behind us there. Turner Tires, 706-253-3339. Hey, from tires to alignment, if you need it, they can set you up. Great family business. Brock Turner, a lot of the guys in the North Georgia fishing area knows him. Just absolutely fantastic people. Go support a local business. And then, of course, we got our buddies up in Dahlonega, Georgia, Etowah Mead Beer and Wine. Hey, again, Mead, Viking beer, the original drink. They make it all kinds of flavors. And, of course, they have beer as well. Go check them out. Got a great area. The brewery's right there. You can see everything in the facility. But on Thursday nights, unfortunately, they do trivia nights, so they're not watching the show. But go check them out. Have you a good one. If you go there, I'm telling you, the happy camper. That's what you want to get is the happy camper. I need to take you up there.
Let's go.
Let's go. Happy camper. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Click that notification bell and follow Fish North Georgia on all social media platforms. I got two announcements before we get there. Good evening to all you guys up there. Got a Lake Hartwell guy up there too. But he lives in Hart County. I used to hunt up in Hart County a little bit. So while I'm reading out these two announcements, you guys go ahead and get ready for your comments and your questions about jig fishing. We're going to try to keep it to jig fishing tonight so we can get specific and do a deep dive. But I want to shout out a couple of things. First off, Oakwood Striper Club. All right, they're doing a raffle right now, $10 ticket, and they're giving away a Humminbird Solix 12. Okay, they're trying to raise money for their club. It's a great local club on Lake Lanier. I believe they do events too. I think they have speakers every once in a while. I'm not big into the striper game, but I hear guys talking about it. But if you're interested in a chance to win a Solix 12, am I saying it right? Is it Solix? Is that the right way to say it? You never know with the way I say things. Go check them out on Facebook, Oakwood Striper Club. I told the guys I'd give them a shout out tonight. And again, let's real quick. We're doing it until the event happens. The Toys for Tots tournament brought to you by Digital Sportsman, Big Shanty Bassmasters, and Fish North Georgia, along with a bunch of other fine sponsors. December 7th out of Laurel Park, okay, a guaranteed $5,000 first place prize that the sponsors have taken care of. All right, so that money's there. Now, the entry fee is $80, $60 of which goes to the pot, $20 goes to Big Fish, and that money right there will help pay for spots 2 through whatever down, depending on how many boats, okay? They're going to launch off at 7 o'clock that morning. I will tell you this. Again, if you want to pre-register, You're going to be blasted off in the order you sign up. So if you want to leave early, now's the time. You can go to Buford Dam Bait and Tackle in Cumming, Georgia, and you can register there. They'll give you your boat number. If you're not in that area and you're up here towards us, you can come into the shop. I'll help set you up. We'll coordinate it. We'll get the your boat number. If you live outside of the direct area right here, say you're up around Lake Hartwell or something, you want to come down on December 7th and just have fun with us, you can message me, Danny Pruitt, on Facebook or Fish North Georgia on Facebook, and I'll get you signed up. So pre-registration is going to go on until November 29th. Yes, you can sign up at the ramp the morning of. If you're one of these guys that want that later flight, definitely you can do that. And this is all going to benefit the Hall County Toys for Tots. Okay, so this whole event, yeah, we're gonna fish, we're gonna have some fun, but we're gonna try to help some children. That's what it's all about. Make sure they have a happy Christmas. So every angler has to bring a toy, an unwrapped toy. We're gonna take all those. We're gonna take them. If you just want to come by the shop and drop off some toys, you don't want to fish, hey, absolutely as well. We're gonna have a raffle there, some great prizes, and the best thing about it is the weigh-in is going to be broadcast right here at Fish North Georgia live. We're going to go probably about an hour before the weigh-in. We'll start the podcast live, but we'll do something. And then about 3 o'clock, I'm going to jump up on the stage, and I'm going to be calling out the weights of the anglers as they come up. So it's going to be a good time. If you pre-register, bring your toys to the ramp. Yeah, I'm going to tell you what, if you don't bring a toy, you ain't fishing. Because this ain't about the money you're going to make on the tournament. This is about the kids. So anyway, that's it. So if you got any questions, you can message me, Danny Pruitt, on Facebook. So all you guys, and also too, because there's a comment right up there at the top. We'll jump in this comment. So kayak guys, them guys want to know if they could do something as well. And I'm glad you reminded me, Alex, of that. Festive Waters contacted us, want to know if they could run a kayak tournament. Same cause, same day. And absolutely. And if we all work it out right, if you guys, maybe you might finish a little earlier than us. And so hopefully if we do that, the winners can come up on stage and I can announce the winners during the live broadcast as well. But we'll coordinate all that. But he's got it right there. They're looking for sponsors as well. So if you got a business and you want to take part in either the boating side with us or you want to take part in the kayak side, hey, jump on board because it's going to be, it's a good community building event. And that's what we're all about here at Fish North Georgia. And you guys are as well. We know how you guys are in the comment section. So did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
I think I got everything. So, all right, guys. So listen, I have guys all the time messaging me, coming in the shop. Can we, we're going to have a redneck Mercer. Yes, sir. But they always want to know about jig fishing. I tie the things and I'm still not a great jig fisherman. So I'm going to be learning as you guys are tonight. Also too, if the questions get rolling in and we miss your question or your comment, type it again. They're going to get to going pretty fast and we might just absolutely miss it. It's not intentional, I promise. I did see a question already up there. Yeah, so Jonathan is not allowed to say jig and beaver in the same sentence. We'll talk about that jig and that beaver there. So scroll on up real quick. You can put the camera on our beautiful guy right over there. But I did see a question. Keep on going up. It was up above there. I do have one question I'm going to start off with because I told Jonathan I had a guy come in the shop today, wanted this question asked. And it's not about jigs. Hopefully this is the only non-jig question we asked tonight. But
it is in a way.
It kind of is. It kind of plays to it. All right, so
that's why jig fishing gets so good this time of year.
All right, here's why. So here was what the guy, and I'm gonna say it's Luke, my buddy Luke, asked me this question, and it's for a farmer. The north end of Lake Lanier and both rivers is just trashed right now with the turnover. He was out there and he was seeing fish pinned to the bottom, and what he wanted to know was during a turnover, the fish are going to the bottom. What he's seeing. Why is that? And is that normal? Are they going below the thermocline? Is the thermocline gone? Explain that.
The thermocline's gone during a turnover, but the turnover in itself tells you what's happening. Your oxygenated water on the top flips and goes to the bottom. So the fish go to the bottom to get out of the trash water that now has come up off the bottom.
Right.
And is on top.
So they'll stay there for a little bit of time until such time as the water stabilizes.
It stabilizes, but that's your fish that have kind of got caught off guard by it. or they're just sitting there. They're the homebodies that don't move.
Yeah, he said the fish, when he said on the bottom, he's like flat out on the bottom.
Yeah, they're glued.
Almost couldn't even see it.
They're glued to the bottom. A lot of times when a turnover happens, if you do catch fish that day, if you look at their bellies, they'll be covered in mud where they've just had it laying on the bottom.
Yeah, and this is going on the north side of Lanier and probably many other lakes in the North Georgia area. Now, scrolling, there was one question. That was even the question. Let's see. No, not that question. Farmer, were you born that handsome or was it acquired over time? It was definitely acquired. Let's see. There was somebody that had keep on going up. And we'll get back. Keep on going. I saw it. I know it's there. I don't want to miss the very first question.
Thread worm
there you go. Joshua wants to know, do you thread a worm with a chunk? Now, I think he's probably talking about putting that little piece in the middle to give it some girth.
It depends on what kind of action I want for my chunk. If I'm wanting a lot of swaying action for my chunk and I want a bigger, say, profile, a longer profile, I'll put that threaded worm up there and then just hook through the chunk.
Right.
So now you've got a longer profile instead of a 3.5, 4 inch bait. Now you've got a 5 inch.
When would you do that? In what situations?
When I'm around a lot of largemouth and a lot of bluegill.
That's more of that time. That's when you would use
when I'm around largemouth and bluegill, because the largemouth are opportunistic feeders.
Opportunistic?
Yeah, something like that. They take every opportunity they get.
Right. Yep.
Is there a particular color worm you're putting on there?
Mm-mm. Just something
just to give it some girth.
Yeah, something that's just going to give it a little play, because if you don't have something there to stop your chunk, a lot of times what will happen is your chunk will go all the way upside down and get caught by the keeper.
Up the hook.
The legs rides up the hook, and then your legs are up underneath your jig.
I read somewhere where yellow mimics, if you put a yellow worm on there, it mimics a bluegill.
Well, it also mimics like an egg sac on the bottom of crawfish.
Yeah,
like if they're spawning or whatnot, and they've got a big egg sac underneath their tail.
Right.
A lot of times it'll mimic that too.
Okay.
That's why I do that trick that I showed you with the dipping the head or taking a chartreuse Cinco and cutting it and adding a grub behind it.
It's for that.
It looks like a little egg sac or a brim belly or whatnot when it opens up.
All right. Well, there you go. So I hope that answered your question. And now you can scroll on back down, Tim. I appreciate you going up there. So again, guys, hey, if we miss it, put it back on there. Can you teach me how to catch fish on jigs? I suck, Ryan Sheffield. Yeah, listen.
Yeah, says the man that's got his own special jig.
Yeah, that's right. Why does the PB&J color work so well in Lanier? Interesting question.
PB&J works in clear water.
Yeah.
And it's really opened my eyes ever since I've kind of watched that video of how fish see colors. The pumpkin shows up really, really strong on a PB&J, but the purple is not actually purple because they don't have that blue cone in their eyesight. So the purple almost looks green.
Really,
the flake in the purple of PB&J almost shows up as green, and the purple's black.
Gotcha. Okay, so that makes sense. I will tell you this, and I can't verify this, but we've heard it enough times that the United States is the only country in the world that uses PB&J. All the skirt material made goes to the United States. It is not a popular color anywhere else in the world. Now, I can't verify that. The internet didn't say it. We just heard people talk about it, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And I think it's probably more predominant here in the Southeast. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
I know it'll catch smallmouth up north, everything like that, but we're big on PB&J.
It goes back to that color that I thought the same thing when I was throwing it. It works. PB&J works better for me in stained water,
really,
than it does crystal clean water. If it's got a stain to it, I like PB&J. But I have to go back to that purple turns black, and it's a lot darker color. Now you've got more of a silhouette in the water, kind of like your black and blue jig, but it's not as predominant as your black and blue jig.
Makes sense. Nathan Owens wants to know any bank fishing tips for Lake Hartwell with a jig. And a jig is one thing that can be fished anywhere. It can be fished shallow. It can be fished deep.
It can be fished anywhere.
I tell you what, for that question, let's just start on the basics for somebody that wants to know the basics real quick. What is the best way? Go ahead, because Alex's next question: what line do you prefer? What ratio reel to use? So let's kind of get you set up on your jig rod, and then just your basic. Before we get too technical, your basic way to work a jig.
Your basic way to work a jig. Think or research it on YouTube. YouTube's a great tool to use. Look how crawfish act on the bottom, because there's really two things you're mimicking with a jig. Two predominant things: a jig or a crawfish and a bluegill.
Right.
Look how a crawfish acts on the bottom. They're not always just hopping around. They're usually just crawling.
Right.
So the first thing you want to try to do is just drag it.
Mm-hmm.
You might add a couple pops in there, because when a crawfish runs, it's up first, then away. Up first, then away.
Right.
It's not just away immediately.
Yep.
And a lot of times where those fish grab it, if they don't grab it off the bottom, is that first pop up, they eat it.
Now, how do you do that with your rod? Just kind of a real quick pop, or you raise straight up?
Up, back.
Up first, like with the wrists.
Up,
and then back with the elbow.
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of line in your rod and reel and all that do you use?
But I was gonna tell him more about that bank fishing. I would start out with two styles of jigs for bank fishing.
Okay.
I'd either have a Arky style head, because your Arky is your 4-wheel drive.
Right.
Arky goes anywhere, everywhere. I can do everything with that jig, no matter what it is: rock, brush, any of it.
You name it.
Arky head's going to be your go-to. The next one is going to be from the bank is a ball head jig, because when you drag ball head, what it does, because it's got that ball, and that vertical line tie, when you drag it, it stands up and makes them crawl stand up in a defensive position.
Okay.
So it actually looks more natural than, say, a brush style head or something like that. It's always, see, a brush style head, a lot of what they'll do is they'll roll over. And when you pull them, all you're doing is you're pulling it to the side.
Not the Arky, but the brush style.
The brush style.
Yeah, I don't even like tying those. I try to talk people out.
Yeah, they're called brush. They're called brush heads, but they get hung worse than any jig and brush. They get hung worse than football heads.
100%. So that makes sense.
Arky and ball head is what you need to start with, and just 3 color combinations. Just a straight green pumpkin, kind of like this one right here. It's just a green pumpkin jig with a little bit of like an orange whiskey color to it.
That is the farmer special.
That is the farmer special.
There you go. There you
go. It's just a jig that you can change with the trailer.
Yeah.
Real simple jig, not much to it.
Available at fish@fngo.com.
I'd have another one like a peanut butter and jelly. I'd have your pumpkin and whatnot. And then I'd have, if you're fishing a lot of stained water, a lot of dark water, I'd have some kind of dark jig, dark trailer, black and blue, straight black.
From a bank, what's you need to look for? More like rock?
I'd look for gravel.
Yeah.
And rock more on the bank, because that's going to be more accessible to you.
Yeah.
Than lay downs and brush piles. I would look for your long points with rock on them, and you would drag that Arky head. My first cast would not be straight down the gut of that point. I'd fish the sides of it first and kind of work my way to the center of it.
Right.
And then before I started fishing the other side, instead of just keep going like this, then I completely turn and work my way. And then you'll figure out where these fish are positioned at on the point from the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can just target that everywhere you go.
Everywhere you go. Makes sense. So Michael Temples wants to know, why or when do you change what type of jig to use? Arky, football head, or round head? You throw an Arky a lot.
Like I said before, an Arky is my 4-wheel drive. I can skip docks with it. I can fish laydowns with it. I can fish rock with it. I can fish riprap with it. I can fish everything with an Arky head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it the best at rock? No.
What is the best at rock?
A football head.
Right.
Football head is the best at rock. But if I only have one jig in my hand,
It's going to be an Arky.
It's going to be an Arky. But if I am targeting Like right now, we're in the fall.
Yep.
Gravel flats are huge this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
I will switch over to a football, and I will actually go a little heavier, like a half or something like that, depending on how the fish are reacting. And I will just slowly reel that thing on the bottom, and it's like it's just moving its way across the bottom. And
we're talking real slow.
Yeah, and with the football head, it'll rock back and forth and give it a secondary action,
right?
Along with the trailer.
We didn't cover your rod and reel setup on that for that previous question or line. So what are you throwing it on?
All right. I throw my jigs on one of two rods, depending on where and what I'm throwing at. If I'm skipping docks, open water, or if I'm, mostly just skipping docks or flipping loose laydowns.
Right.
It's a 7.6 medium heavy on an 8-to-1 gear ratio with 15 to 17 pound test.
Okay.
If I am fishing just gnarly brush piles, some of the gnarliest stuff you can look at, and I'm literally just pitching 20, 30 feet.
Right.
It's like a 7.6, 7.3 heavy with 17 to 20 pound test.
And we're talking about fluoro?
Fluoro.
Okay.
With still gear ratio 8-1 or higher. The reason I like a high gear ratio reel is because a lot of times with jig fishing, you don't have a chance to sit there and go, "Oh, there he is," and pull up on him and reel down to him to keep tight line. If they feel you with a jig, they're spitting it. They're gone.
Right. So you got to catch up with them, especially if they pick it up and come to the boat with it.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, to quote the great G-Man, slacklining is the way to go with a jig.
I understand. Absolutely.
You need to be a slackliner with a jig.
Makes sense. So Josh Postel, appreciate you joining us tonight. It's Postel. I hope I said it right. I've been throwing a pumpkin and blue football jig, and I can't figure it out. How do you work this thing? So basically, kind of covering what you just said, the football jig, you can drag it, you can slow reel it to make that bounce.
You can do anything you want to with a jig. Even with a football head, you can swim that thing like a swim jig.
You can.
Any jig you have, let the fish tell you what they want.
Right. So I guess it matters too where he's throwing it too, because we don't know what he's fishing.
Yeah. I know Josh. I grew up with Josh.
Bless your heart, Josh.
I know he's probably on Lake Blue Ridge.
Okay.
He's probably fishing Morganton Point and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Morganton Point is extremely shallow. Great little gravel quartz flat. And they're there certain times of the year. But when they're not there, it's a desert island.
So we're just going to say it ain't the way you're working your jig. The fish just ain't
Blue
there.
Ridge, the problem with bank fishing Blue Ridge is you do not have enough public access water to really hit many places.
Right.
You've got Morganton Point, you've got Lakewood. I don't even think the marina lets you fish off the bank. And you've got Green Creek, and that's it.
So it's very limited.
Well, I take that back. You can go up the river there at Ralston's Flats, and I think you can hike into the flats down there.
Right.
And it's really close to the river channel.
Right.
So they'll move up on it, and then up past Will Scott, up in the river, there's another little camping area you can kind of get. But other than that, there really is no really public access to get to the water to fish. So it's really hard to bank fish Blue Ridge.
Yeah, makes sense. So trip fishing. Yeah, he was in the shop today. Appreciate you coming up here and talking with me for a while. Kind of like I used to be. I hate fishing a jig. I've caught some fish but have no confidence in it aside from just not putting it down. How do I build confidence in it? And I have the exact same problem, especially when I know I probably can pick up a shaky head and catch a fish. I don't commit to it. Now, I'm going to this weekend, but I don't. So how do you build confidence in it?
It is all in where you put it. You have to pick your places to put a jig. I just don't go down the bank fan casting the jig.
Okay.
Because you'll burn yourself out on a jig just going down the bank like you would with a crankbait or a jerkbait or something moving. Because your fish that eating jigs, crawfish, bluegill are in certain areas.
Right.
They are on chunk rock. They are on wood or around some kind of ambush structure. The way I built my confidence with my jig, and you cannot be afraid to lose it. That's the big thing. You cannot be afraid to lose a jig. I know that's money, and trust me, I know I hate throwing. I bought a bull shad, and I think I've thrown it a handful of times, and it's one of his originals he made.
Because you're scared to lose it?
Because I'm afraid to lose it. But people catch monsters on it, but I'm afraid to lose it.
Right.
It's the same thing with a jig. You cannot be afraid to pitch it in the gnarliest place, because that's where the fish is going. That's where you're going to get bit with a jig.
Sounds like dating.
Yeah. If you
shake your head, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you pitch your jig, if you come around and you go down a lay down and they're eating and you just get on the outskirts and they're just chewing on it, yeah, they'll come out and get it. But if they're just laying, say they're the logs right here and they're just laying here nosed like this and they're not moving, and you have to drop it right past them for them to even turn on it, you got to put it in some nasty stuff. That's when I'm doing that, I'm fishing that heavy with 17 to 20 pound test.
Right.
When I set the hook, I want that fish coming to me.
Yeah.
I don't want him digging back down in that stuff.
Yeah, you got to get him out of there.
You got when you hit him, you got to bring him with you.
You got to turn him.
Yeah. Makes sense. So Tyler Cruz, they have the same colors, I bet, just called something different. And that could be a possibility. We're talking about the PB&J skirt material being a thing. You could be 100% right, boss. 100% right. Trit says, where should I be throwing as opposed to my normal moving baits? So you using your jig specifically at structure.
Structure.
Yeah.
A jig is a structure style bait. I mean, can I go down a bank just pitching a jig or throwing a jig and dragging? Yeah, you can catch fish that way too. Sometimes when they're like in the spring, during the pre-spawn, where they're just going up and down the bank, or during the fall, like right now, when they're wolf pack just going up and down the bank, yeah, you can catch rogue fish just out there cruising on a jig.
Yeah.
But what I'm targeting is where your better than average fish stage to eat, because your big ones, once they get so big, they're lazy.
Especially largemouth.
Largemouth. Spots, not so much.
Yeah. Right.
Largemouth, when they get so big, they're lazy. They'll sit in a brush pile, wait for 3-4 inch bluegill to come by, and not pay attention.
They don't want to use too much energy.
Right.
Makes sense right there. Discover Bass Adventure. Appreciate you joining us tonight, buddy. Does Farmer throw a jig on a fairy wand?
Of course not.
Listen, the man don't like fairy wands. I don't
even think I throw a.
You throw a wacky?
I've thrown those 3/16 ounce like little bitsies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I won't even throw them on a fairy wand. I've got like a medium bait caster I throw them on.
Oh,
I won't do
it. Good Lord, right there. Tyler Cruz, is a top water bite at Lanier over?
No. That lake, it's never over.
No,
I've caught. I think it was last year. I caught like 8 or 9 on topwater in the middle of winter.
Yeah,
because they come up and busted, and
you're there.
Just happened to have something on there that I could reel up top.
I don't think you can target them as much in the winter as you can, but they will come up.
They still come up.
Now, they'll come up on Latham. And
you get 2-3 warm days in a row.
Yeah,
they'll come up.
I've seen schooling activity in like January and February on Latham. And he also says, and not 7 feet up, small twitches. So I imagine he's talking about working that jig. I think, Tyler, why don't you go ahead and verify that second question you had right there?
You're not. I know what he's talking about. He's talking about when I'm popping.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm not sitting there moving my rod 7 foot, because when you move your rod and you're dragging a jig, if you pull it that far, you've moved that jig 4 or 5 foot.
We talked about that Tuesday night.
Yeah.
People don't realize that 1 foot on the rod is not equal to 1 foot down
that's
there
like
with your line.
That's like 4 or 5 foot.
100%.
So it's literally like a small pop with my wrist.
Yeah.
And then back just a little bit.
Yeah.
But on a semi-slack line. So I'm not moving that bait 7 foot.
Right there. So Joshua throws his Falcon Lizard Dragger 731 reel in case they chase. It's not too fast. 17 pound InvizX double San Diego jam. He even put the knot right there on it.
I like a double San Diego jam. but when I'm in a hurry, it's just a polymer knot and just go.
Really? Okay. Makes sense right there. And so Fatty Yak says, damn fine hand model. I'm going to assume that's when you held up the jig and not my hand going in front of your face when I'm pointing all the time. Ryan says they've been pretty tight to wood and brush the past 2 weeks.
Yes, that's what I saw. I mean, back when they were doing that kayak tournament for the Helene relief, and I was just goofing off and playing in it and whatnot, and I went to a brush pile that I knew I could reach just paddling and pitched a jig in there, and 2 casts. I had a 4 and a 6.
Yeah. Largemouth.
Yeah, largemouth.
And that was on Lanier.
I was on Lanier.
Yeah, so people don't realize there are a lot of good largemouth on there. Michael Temples wants to know, when do you put down a jig and pick up something else, which happens to me after about 10 minutes of throwing it. That's why I don't commit to it. That's why I'm no good at it. I'm bad about throwing it all day long with no bite.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes on, he's the opposite of me. He'll stay with it. You're fishing. You're throwing a jig. You're not getting any bites. How long will you kind of say, all right, this just ain't working today?
I'm really bad about having 4 or 5 different techniques on my front deck that are just completely different from each other until the fish tell me what's going on. Say if I approach a lay down, and the first thing I pitch in there is a jig. Okay, I don't get bit. The next thing I might do is I may swim away because I'm still 20, 30 feet from it. I mean, I'm not a bomb cast away from it, but I may just kind of underhand cast a wake bait over the top of it.
Yeah.
To see if anything comes up out of it. If they're looking up for bait fish.
Right.
If that doesn't work, then I may do something real finessey. I may underhand pitch a wacky rig over there and let it fall next down to the lay down until the fish tell me what they want.
Yeah. Makes sense. Joshua says, are you fishing shallow with a jig because of Wolfpack resident fish or targeting shallow just because of the turnover?
This time of year, I'm targeting those fish that are pulling up and feeding just primarily on.
You keep talking. Okay. Don't worry about me.
Just primarily on crawfish and bluegill. Even though your crawfish and bluegill are deep, I am more comfortable in water that's chest high. That's just where I like to fish. And this time of year, fish start to tend to move shallow and start cruising banks and cruising brush piles, cruising all these places, docks, because they're looking to feed because their winter's coming.
Right.
They're looking to pack on the pounds. And what packs on pounds faster for a fish than crawfish and bluegill? Something high in protein and fat.
Come here, Ken. We're getting ready. No, you ain't gonna be on camera. Come here. So look, the next couple of comments are talking about it's just money. They lost 7 jigs last Saturday and all that. But then Discover Bass says there's a lure retriever here at Fish North Georgia. Get him out. We're actually going to do something. This is totally impromptu. He's talking about this money saver lure retriever. You know how to strap it on? You just take it through there and wrap it up around it somehow. See if you can figure out how to get it on there. I'm gonna hold this. I want you to back up about.
This is the blind leading the blind, huh?
You got to take it through there and up and around it.
Up and around it.
Oh, good Lord. Let's see. You got no. Look. So you take it here. Sorry, guys. We're
I got a
this
swivel on mine.
You take it through here, and then up and around. Hey, damn, that's my finger, dude. Shit, that hurt. I think I'm doing this right. I got my glasses on. I can't read. I can't see. Did I get it on there?
Hell no.
All right, listen.
He's making fun of us.
I am making fun of you. There's a way to do this crap. You know how to do it. Get that thing on. I mean, I can't see. So what we're going to do, though, we're going to put this lure retriever on. You're going to walk back about 30 feet. I'm going to hold it over this full can of
half hour later.
Hey, we're going to get it. Listen.
Bait back.
This hey, listen. We on this show. We on this show. We can off cam. I mean, I don't know what's impromptu is the word I'm thinking. Why don't you correct me back there?
I think that was correct.
Impromptu is good?
I think so.
You think so? Did you get it through there?
I did, and then it came out.
That story of my life. Anyway, so what we're going to do is.
This is what happens on live TV. Nothing ever works
Rabbit hole
right now, and it's our
I just want
fault.
to show people how hard this thing hits. if we can never get it on. How many guys does it take to put a lure retriever on?
I bet I can throw that
It's
down
because
if
it's
you
not
want.
on a rod.
It's because you're.
It's because it's not on a rod,
It's
and
not
it's
on
nothing.
a rod.
Yeah, it's not on a rod, and it's not pulled tight.
That's exactly.
That's
right.
exactly
We're
what
trying
it
to do
is.
so
We're just trying to loose line it. It's
we're
not-
trying to loose line something. So listen, we don't know how this is going to work, but we're just. Gosh bless. All right, so
We
listen.
just broke wood.
Figure out how to put that thing on, Kim, while we keep talking, and then I'm gonna show them. You slide it through and wrap it around like you would any other.
You don't let them take.
Or just stick it through the damn holes right now, since you got the end of the line. We're trying to wrap it.
Oh God.
I've never been able to do that. I've always needed help. I'm sitting there beating the side of a leg.
One more hole to go.
One more hole, and you got it. You got it. All right, so walk back there about 30 feet and stand at the top of that. Stand on that chair and don't break that chair back there. I mean, get your ass up high, like real high. No, I mean like stand on that chair, get up at the ceiling. We gotta mimic this. All right, take out. We're gonna
Call
see if this works.
911.
We're gonna see if this works right here. This is.
You're gonna bust that can.
I hope not. All right, pull that line real tight.
Let me get out of the way.
Everybody,
Now,
everybody,
but
everybody
listen.
watch. Here comes a can
Pull it,
buster.
take that comment down so they can see that thing right there. Yeah, hold on a second. Okay, now listen. Now you gotta go high. All right, we're tight, right? Let go of that joker. Oh man, I let it loose. Try it one more time. You break your finger. All right. I'm gonna hold it real down tight. You good?
Yep. Act like you're a brush pile.
I'm a brush pile. Go. Ow! Ow!
They
Ouchie.
work, folks.
Okay,
They work.
well, it
It'll
works.
knock that lure right out.
Broke your
I'm just
finger.
telling you, that was like the most unscientific product. I saw the comment. I'm like, hell, let's see if we can make it work. I'm gonna post a video tomorrow on Fish North Georgia. I actually have a video of that thing coming through the water. It's slow-mo from Richard, who makes them. He fishes the NPFL. When that thing is coming through the water, there is a bubble trail like a Japanese torpedo in World War II coming through the water. You believe that?
No,
Not from what I promise you it is. Okay, listen, we didn't do the best.
I didn't see any bubble trail this time.
Oh, my knuckle hurts.
He's got
Look,
blood
three-
spatter on it now.
3 ounce weight come through the water, busting my knuckle. So anyway, luckily, our right hand's still good. Always a chance. Always a chance.
Ambidextrous, huh?
I am. So anyway, listen, I'm telling you what, that Money Saver lure retriever is legit. Don't knock the people trying to show you guys how it works. So let's see. Let's get back to the questions before we run everybody off tonight.
How often you use the Money Saver lure before you give up on it?
Well, listen,
Another question.
I don't. I own a tackle shop. I just break off and say, I know where I can get another one. So, which is not the best thing to do. Get you one of these things.
I tie braid to the end of it, whichever end's going down. I tie braid to it so I can sit there, and if it doesn't knock it loose the first
Pop
time,
it.
you can pop it up and it'll go back down and knock it again, and you can get it back.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, we got them at fngo.com now. I'm not going to tell you they're as cheap as some of the cheap ones, but the design on it, since I got the other one at my feet, the line's right here, in line right there. So if it's on that line, it's hitting your lure.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about it. It is hitting the lure. And I mean, what do you think that is? About 3 ounces?
Every bit.
Yeah, I mean, that joker's coming through the water. It'll knock it loose. Hell, it might knock your lures off. If you get your plug back, that'll work. Braid to fluorocarbon leader or straight fluoro? Nathan Owens wants to know.
Straight fluoro on a jig. I don't use.
Yeah, yeah.
Because when you have a fluoro to or braid to fluoro knot, you've got a weak point. And with jig fishing, you're setting the hook. You're not trying to just lift into them or nothing like that. When you step back and swing.
Yeah. Oh, wow, absolutely. JP Vern outside. That joker just dropped 375 on one of them lifetime license. I saw his post. I believe it was him today.
He did.
You know, I had the opportunity to do that when they first came out, and I'm like, hell, I'll do it next year. Like, I would be hunting for
My
free.
birthday's coming up. Since you fish with me, I mean, I'm just dropping a hint here.
Absolutely. Like, seriously, though, I could have been fishing for free for the last decade. That was a deal back then. So he got a lifetime license. But anyway.
For how much?
Well, 375, and that covers him for the rest of his life. So if you figure, if you hunt and fish, that's $60, $70 a year.
Hunt and fish.
Yeah, that's a whole shit caboodle.
Well, when you turn 62, it's free anyway.
I ain't got but 10 years to go,
For fishing.
baby. Fishing is?
Yes, sir.
You get to fish for free.
I certainly do.
I like it. Something to look forward to.
I'm cheap.
Well, if I make it to 62, we're going to throw a party. All right, we'll do that. So I know size makes a difference at times, but does the weight really matter on average size jigs? I can be throwing a 3/8 to a 3/4 ounce in deep water and then turn around and toss it by a stump in 3 foot water. And he's got a question mark. Can you do that?
Yes, you can. All your weight does really, which you can impede it with your trailer, is rate of fall. How are they wanting it falling? Do they want a slow, methodical fall like a crawfish is just sinking back to the bottom after it got popped off a log? What?
I got a way to test this money saver. You stand up over there. We let Ken let it go, and we run the line right between your legs.
No, I'm good.
See how that works. We'll see if it's got some weight behind it.
No.
See how brave the man is.
No, I'd jump before it got to me.
Yeah, I know it. So would I. So, but like a lot of guys are throwing quarters right now.
Rate of fall.
Rate of fall.
I am one that I will not change my head unless the fish. Everything in fishing is let the fish tell you what they want. If you're catching some that are hitting it on the fall, you've got the rate of fall just right. They're just coming by and picking it up as it falls back down to the bottom.
Right.
A lot of times, if you get a lot of followers, and this is where forward-facing sonars helps so many guys that like to jig fish and worm fish and stuff like that, as far as rate of fall goes. If you have a fish turn on it and follow it to the bottom, but as soon as it hits the bottom, they turn off of it, don't want nothing to do with it, slow the fall down or speed it up.
Gotcha.
That's where you start playing with sizes.
I got you, Tim. I messed Tim up. He tries to guess when I'm going to talk.
He does this to me all night.
The one jig that I throw 90% of the time is 3/8.
I think most people do.
3/8.
I sell
half
95% 3/8.
A half ounce is a great size jig. Too heavy in most situations.
I feel like I'm dragging mud when I throw a half ounce jig.
A 3/8 will come up to something and bump it and have more of a chance of bouncing when it hits it.
Move it.
Yeah.
To come over it than a half or a 3/4 will, because when it hits it, it wants to bury.
Makes sense. No, it makes perfect sense.
Same thing with a quarter, but a quarter ounce comes in when you're fishing ultra shallow or you're getting a lot of the fish to grab it on the fall.
Yeah. Okay. So Ken put Papa Weespork.
It's the Papa E pork toads.
Papa E pork toads. If you throw pork, it's better known. So check them out.
Yeah. So if you like Uncle Josh, but then that went through that deal.
Yeah.
That guy is better known. He actually makes the pork. Go to that website.
Check him out.
And then all you got to do is get one of these food containers that are like microwave deal.
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Put it in there, and it literally it keeps forever.
Okay.
So it won't spoil stuff like that as bad as some of the other ones in those small containers.
Okay. So what he's saying is, so he put that down. Of course, Ken likes to sit back here in the shadows and make comments and faces at me all the time. Papa E's pork toads. All right. So my first jig fishing, we're talking about back in the 80s, was putting on the old Uncle Josh. And it was always that I always do that green one with the spots or whatever.
Frog.
But I tell you what, those things too, seriously, if you took them all, like if you did not take, my dad used to beat the hell out of them
They dry out in
because they would dry out and you got to get a sawzall to get them off. But this is a veteran. If you like throwing those kind of things, this is a veteran owned company. And he was saying that you can get them in any kind of like Tupperware kind of microwavable kind of thing. You can keep them in there and they'll last. They're good.
The bigger the container, the more it sits in that juice, and you can order it in salt or garlic.
Salt or garlic. Okay.
And pick out your color, and it can stay on the shelf. And
Perfect.
you're in good shape.
Check them out. Check them out. He's got it listed. Trent says pitching a jig, stroking a jig, dragging a jig, or swimming a jig. When should I do each? Okay, so let's start it with this. When do you pitch a jig?
I pitch a jig year round.
Yeah, so that's something you're always just kind of flipping on structure.
It's just close quarter combat.
Stroking a jig.
That is a early spring and late summer technique.
What exactly is stroking a jig?
It's making that jig do what I said, but a really exaggerated version of it.
What are you talking about? Lift and pop,
But it's sitting there like you're hitting a flutter spoon. It's bang, bang.
Okay, there you
and
go.
then you make that thing come way up off the bottom and then go back down. It's a huge ledge deal, like on Chickamauga, Nickajack, where you've got ledges and current. Stroking a jig is really is a successful technique.
Okay,
to catch big ones on ledges.
Dragging a jig is basically your basic kind of that can work any time of the year.
Mm-hmm. I really predominantly go dragging a jig when the water's cold.
Slow it down a little bit.
When things don't move fast.
Yeah.
When I'm dragging a jig.
When you're dragging it. Okay.
Or if, say, it's spawn and those, especially spots, because they're so aggressive. If you drag anything and it's just bumping bottom, making a lot of noise, they'll attack it because it's close to their. And that's when I'll keep it on the bottom.
And because they're just spots.
Yeah. And because they're spots.
Because they do that. Or swimming a jig. When would you swim a jig?
I swim a jig pre-spawn when they're really active and feeding. I swim a jig in early summer after they're like during the heron spawn and stuff like that. This is technically swim jigs.
Yeah.
Like real swim jigs. And then in the fall, right now, I've got a swim. Right now, I'd have 3 jigs tied on, 3 different jigs. I'd have a Arky just because that's the one I have in my hand 90% of the time. That's my 4-wheel drive. I'd have a football head for if I find fish piled up on those gravel bars and stuff like that. And I can kind of just slowly reel it and let it bump across the bottom, kind of like a slow roll crankbait, and a swim jig, a white swim jig.
White.
Yeah. Oh, Mr. Paul Conan, Mr. Paul. The big ones are just scaly calorie counters. Does the energy I gain to eat that thing outweigh the energy I use to catch it? 100% right there. Appreciate you watching tonight, Paul. Miss you, guy. Justin Fancher. Now, this is a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Why throw a jig with a skirt instead of a Texas rig crawl? Always seems like the skirt was less natural to me. Good question.
It is a very good question. And a lot of times this Texas rig crawl will outfish a jig because they're not wanting that much action.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at a crawfish on camera in defensive posture, its legs, its crawls, its antennas are all up and moving.
Looks big.
That's what it's trying to do, yeah.
When a jig hits the bottom, it's all condensed when it's going down. Looks smaller profile. But when it hits the bottom and the way those silicone skirts are made for the water, they fan out and blow up, just like a crawfish in defensive position.
Yeah.
So that's why a jig, I think, is pretty good at mimicking a crawfish or a bluegill, because if you watch a bluegill in the water too, their fins and all that are always pulsating. And
they are
getting bigger. Same thing with a jig. If you've got secondary action beside your trailer, you've also got that skirt pulsating and moving. You've got secondary action, makes it look more natural.
Yeah. And sometimes, though, back to his question, though, sometimes just a basic crawl will work.
Or a lot of, like I said, a lot of times just a Texas rig crawfish will outfish a jig because they're so keyed in on that size. Like if you pull a fish out and it's got a 2 to 3 inch crawfish in its mouth, and you're not being able to catch them on the jig, and the only bite you can get is a finesse jig because that skirt doesn't flare out like a regular size jig, you may want to try a Texas rig crawfish because you may end up getting more bites than a jig.
Closer to that size that you do. Good question, Justin. Absolutely good question. Tracy goes, I must not be speaking their language. It's on down. Yeah, you can go on down a little bit. There you go. So Paul wants to know, are you a line watcher? I have to admit I am.
I am too.
When it comes to a jig, but that is, you know why I think that is, at least with me, is because back in the day, in the 80s and all that, when we were throwing our Texas rig worms, you raised your rod up, you felt that do-do-do, and we'd always just kind of watch the line, see if the line, I think it's just habit to kind of ingrained. Now, that was me. It's a bad habit I've got. Is that the same reason for you? That's just the way
I've always been taught to watch my line.
You just always been taught to watch it. Mm-hmm. Now, you watching it for moving off or just a pop?
Pop. Any
so you're watching that.
Unnatural movement.
Too. Yeah, I get that. What about you? Are you more feel or are you watching the line?
I never lose contact with my jig.
Ever.
because that's how you miss fish with the jig. Like I said, when you pick up, and I'm sure you felt it. If you lose contact with a jig, like you slack line it, you ain't got nothing there, and you pick up and you're picking up, looking for it, and you hit that fish, you feel him.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel? You feel this. You go like that.
Yeah.
That's him spitting it.
Yeah. Now, I learned that the hard way on Blue Ridge. Trying to learn how to throw a jig, raise it up at that first, and what did I do? Old school, reel down.
Yeah.
Waiting for that second one, and when it come again, I set the hook, and it was nothing. I'm like, what am I doing? And Ryan goes, that fish doesn't spit it out.
When I say I don't lose contact with my jig, I'm not tight line the whole time. It's a controlled slack line. It's not just straight into the water.
Yeah.
Laying flat.
Right.
But it's not straight tight lined either. It's got a little bit of a bow to it. So I can sit there and I can usually feel it. If a fish picks it up, you're going to feel a tick or it just get heavy. And that's usually how you know there's a fish there. You reel down and swing.
Yeah.
You don't ever give him a chance to feel you. You just cross his eyes.
That's what a lot of people are like. They watch a hook set on a jig and they're like, man, that's kind of violent. But you got to drive that hook.
You have to. You got to get past that weed guard.
Yeah.
You got to get that weed guard to lay down
mm-hmm.
far enough to where you can push that 4 and 5/0 hook through their mouth.
Thicker hook, yeah.
Yeah. So Discover Bass, do you trim your jig skirt and make it a finesse jig to downsize the presentation? When do you trim or not trim your jig skirts?
I trim all jig skirts. Now, the ones y'all tie here, me and Ryan Sheffield were very particular about how far back.
I use the Ryan method.
Yes. We're very particular about how far back the skirt material goes past the hook.
Mm-hmm.
You trim them to the length me and Ryan like. So I don't mess.
About one digit, your first knuckle on your thumb, kind of.
I don't mess with the True Grits.
Mm-hmm.
Now, say if I were to go out and buy a dirty jig or something like that the skirt material is longer, that's what I do. I usually take my thumb, pinch it, go that far past the hook.
About a knuckle.
And trim it off.
Yeah. That's just the way Ryan taught me.
Now,
so that's how
as far as finesse jigs go, before I started fishing Danny's and the True Grit jigs, when I would have them tied
mm-hmm.
and had the collar, I would actually have me some finesse skirts made at home. I'd just give me some skirt material and make me a finesse jig skirt.
Right.
And if I wanted that same head profile, I'd just take the skirt off the jig that I was using and slide the finesse profile up on it.
Right.
And make me a finesse jig. But most of my finesse jigs are ball head jigs. They're not arky heads. They're not football heads. They're ball heads because of the way it lays on the head itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And generally speaking, when somebody says finesse, I think ball head.
Yeah.
And I'll tie them up every once in a while too.
People don't give a finesse jig its due.
It
catches them.
It does. Josh says, how many flips or attempts do you give a laydown and or a dock before you move on? This weekend it took 3 to 6 flips on structure to be able to get a bite.
That's about my max. 6 is my max.
Okay.
My first flip when I come up to a laydown is in where I think I'm gonna get bit. It's gonna be in the heart of it. In the center of it. Yeah, there may be a couple fish on it. And if I catch that one fish out of the center, I may have blew that lay down up. But I'm going to go where I think the biggest one's going to sit.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And then my next flip may be at the end of it to see if they're deeper. My third flip will be up towards the base of it where it enters the water. Then my fourth and fifth flip are on the sides of it, kind of to see where it's at. And my sixth flip will be right back in the center. I'll go right back to where I started.
Okay. Makes absolute sense. Ryan says, and for guys, if you don't know, Ryan used to work here. Ryan's the one that taught me how to tie jigs. Probably as good as anybody I know out there. Trim the skirt when you need the action of your trailer to be more prominent without losing the profile and the bulk of the jig.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Eddie Hudson says, have you fished the Buckeye spot remover jig?
Yes.
All right. Why don't you tell everybody what your thoughts is on that?
I like that jig. It's a Buckeye. Buckeye has a pretty good jig lineup. I mean, they've got the balling out jig from G-Man. Swindale. I mean, it's a really good jig. If you get that, you have to trim the skirt material up. You're just going to have to do it.
Well, hell, Ryan's 6'7". His first digit is probably 3 inches long.
It is.
I have fished that jig right there, the Buckeye spot remover jig. I have fished it, and it's a pretty good jig. But like I said, I've narrowed my picks down
right
to maybe 5 jigs and 5 colors.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of people, as far as jig fishing go, mess up, is they buy every color. They buy every style. You need to figure out which one works best for the way you like to fish.
Yeah, for sure.
An Arky head might not be everybody's style.
Right.
The old school worm draggers, football's going to be your go-to.
Yeah.
Your finesse guys that like a spinning rodder, the little Kitex, or the Bitsy bugs, or a finesse style jig may be more your alley.
Right.
Or one of the big ones a lot of people like to throw on a spinning rod is the Picasso little spotty.
God, Lord, don't say that. Stephen Bardet is going to show up in the comment section somewhere. He'll pop
They
up.
throw them on bait casters too.
I throw them on bait casters.
Yeah. But you can't throw them on a spinning
You
rod.
can throw them on a spinning rod because of the weed guard.
Yeah.
It's all in what you're wanting to fish.
Mm-hmm.
What are you comfortable with fishing? What is your lake mostly like? Is your lake mostly sand? Is your lake mostly kind of a mucky bottom? Is it dirty water? Is it clean water? You let the conditions show you what you want to fish. Around us, we're around a lot of rock, a lot of wood,
right,
a lot of snaggy stuff. So the Arky is my go-to because I'm around a lot of snaggy stuff. If you're down on Eufaula, a swim jig style head is going to be more your go-to because it comes through grass and vegetation a lot better than an Arky head does or a football head does.
And you still can work a swim jig just like you would a regular jig.
Yes,
it's just a different head.
That's a misconception is, oh, it's a swim jig, I have to swim it. No, you can fish it you can drag it on the bottom just like you do a football or a Arky head.
Yeah, 100% for sure.
And that's a big thing out there on those deep brush piles on Lanier.
Absolutely.
3/4 ounce swim jig, because of the depth, will come through that brush pile better than any other deep water jig.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've said that before in front of me, so for sure. All right, so there was a question. Excuse me, right before Ryan, there was a question. I want to get that. So NC Bass Puller, we're going to answer that real quick. Right now, we're going to do the question of the week.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, we're going to do that right now. I didn't mean to throw that on you, but we're halfway through the show. Now, in celebration of something that has happened here at Fish North Georgia with the podcast crew, both crews, the Tuesday and the Thursday nighter, we are now with Spro. Okay, and so we're going to be doing a lot of work with Spro, helping promote their baits and getting them out there. And so all the guys are going to be testing out Spro products and everything. You're going to start seeing a lot of it on social media because, number one, because Spro makes great baits. They got a wide variety of them. So over the next 12 months, you're going to see all of these guys, my Tuesday night guys, everybody, we're going to be testing out Spro baits, getting a lot of their new stuff in before they hits the market, testing them out, doing some product reviews and everything. And we want to thank Spro for that opportunity. So in celebration of that, tonight we're going to give away a Spro rock crawler. This is a RK50, 4'8", and the color is, take my glasses off, electric red crawl. Okay, so listen, rock crawler bites getting ready to be, everybody's going to be throwing a rock crawler. It's about that time of year. So the first person to answer the question in the comment section, I'm going to send you this rock crawler right here from Spro. The only crankbait I have any faith in, and I don't throw a lot of crankbaits, but I throw a rock crawler. You can't beat a rock crawler. But you guys be looking for that from all of these guys: Jonathan, Tim, Kevin, Ken, Dave, Clint, Tony Kellum, and Alex Purse, all of us. I appreciate Spro giving us the opportunity to work with such a fine company. So we're definitely going to do that. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Read it 2 times. Here we go for the Spro rock crawler.
3 answers, but they're very simple.
Okay.
All right. Who has the largest margin of victory in the Bassmaster Classic history? What year was it, and by how many pounds?
Say that one more time.
Who has the largest margin of victory in Bassmaster Classic history? What year was it, and by how many pounds?
So there you go. First, now remember, 3
Pounds and ounces.
Huh?
Pounds and ounces.
Pounds and ounces. Now there's 3 answers: the angler, the year, and how much was the lead. How much did he beat the field by? Correct.
Right.
All right. So whoever gets that gets a Spro rock
They'll
crawler.
get it within a minute.
Well, somebody will. So you might have to scroll on down there to the end just so you can watch everybody, and then we'll go back up and get the questions that we missed. You guys say, yeah. Okay, what was that? Is that Clint? Did he get it? Cameraman Cletus up there?
No.
Okay, good. You didn't get it. Y'all keep going.
Margin of victory.
Margin of victory.
By how much? Not his total weight.
Not total weight, margin of victory. Okay. So you guys work on that, and I'm gonna see when you find it there, Papa, let me know, okay?
I'll do it.
You do it. So Alatoona right now. A little bit different on there, a lot more rock. A lot of guys have been talking about throwing a jig over there, but I've noticed a lot of guys over there, 1/4 ounce. They talk about the little spotty, smaller jigs seem to work over there. Is that because the spotted bass over on that lake is small? And what about guys that are smaller than Lanier? Smaller than Lanier. They're getting there, but they're smaller than Lanier. Or if you were throwing a jig on Alatoona, you're going to go with your full size and target for largemouth. I mean, which camp are you going to be in?
That goes back to me. If I know they're on a jig, I'm going to have 2 or 3 tied on. If I was going to Alatoona, I'd probably have a finesse jig tied on and a regular size jig tied on. And if I'm seeing a lot of bait back in pockets, I'd have a swim jig tied on. But with Alatoona, those fish seem to congregate. They like wood just like any fish would, but they seem to congregate. The bigger fish seem to congregate around rock on that lake. So I would.
And there's not a shortage of rock.
No. So
Cameraman.
Did he get it right there?
Yep.
Good grief there. Cletus? All right. So you can't win it because you know what? You're on the Spro team. You're on a Spro team. You're getting free Spro. You can't win it. So the first person who copies Cameraman Cletus's answer down in the comment, you get it. What about Darian Moss right there? Is that close? Darian?
Nope. Where's Darian?
Or
yeah, Rick Clun, 25.
Or is it Justin right in front?
Justin, I think, got it.
Oh.
If we don't grade Justin on spelling.
Yeah, we're not going to Rick Clum.
Yeah,
Rick Clum, but he got it.
He was speed typing.
Darian, I thought you had it, but Justin got it right before you. And Clint's over there at home cussing me going, So.
He didn't pick that color.
That's right. He didn't. So anyway, he's over like he's going to talk to me next Tuesday night, which we're going to do our Halloween episode next Tuesday night. We're going to be dressing up because you're not going to be here on Thursday.
No.
So we might not even have a show on Thursday. I don't know. But Tuesday night's going to be dress up night. I'm going to find some long blonde hair, and I'm going to be a Mill Wagner. I'm going to get one of them like rope hats and kind of cock it to the side like that and sit back all cool. Give me an AFCO shirt. I think that's what I'm going to do.
You're looking for a miracle.
I know. He's good looking. I can't pull a meal off right there. So, all right, let's go. Let's see if we can. Let's see. I think it was.
I got to go ways back here.
Got to go. Yeah, we don't want to miss any questions. But guys, again, if we do, type it again. That's the one thing where I know you guys, there's a lot of questions going on. And it may seem like I'm skipping over them. I promise you I'm not. So one little tip from Ryan that he did. Now, I want you guys to listen to this. If you get your jig hung up, don't yank it on or jerk on it or pull it like you're trying to move a truck. And he does this, and I'll try to do it with my hands, my arms. So if you're watching, if you're listening on YouTube later on, you guys won't be able to see this. But he kind of holds his rod straight out. And Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but he kind of lifts straight up. He won't pull it towards him, and a lot of us try to pull it towards us. But he gets his line, not too tight, but rod straight out, and then he pretty much kind of comes up with his arms like this. Because lots of times the way he explained it to me is, you're pinned. You're not necessarily hung.
You're pinned between like a fork or something like that. Your jig has come up and hit right between the fork, and your head's just pinned. So if you give it slack, you give it enough to fall back. And if you lift straight up, that jig's going to come up through it.
And so your weed guard also might be able to get
Yeah.
up there and do the work, which is what he said. So doesn't work every time,
but a lot of times,
it does. So Guy B, how do you break down a dock with a jig?
Everybody knows a dock is broke up into 5 or 6
Little
areas,
quadrants,
quadrants. I mean, you got your 2 sides, you got your front and your back, you got your walkway, and you've got the center of the dock underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
The way I approach it with a jig is if I'm seeing fish nosed out on dock floats.
Are you using your forward facing sonar, or is this fish you see
just
visual?
me sight fishing, because when I'm dock fishing, I'm on the trolling motor, I'm moving. I'm not really paying attention to my sonar when I'm fishing docks. Like when me and you went on Notley, and I could visually see those fish looking out from underneath the dock floats, I will start targeting the outside of the dock. But the fish have to show me that they're sitting right there. Most of the time, I only make 3 casts really with a jig under a dock. It's near the back in the shallow water, around the walkway in the back, skip up underneath the cables, get as far as to that walkway as you can,
right,
and down the back side of that dock, because a lot more fish hang on the back side of the dock than a lot of people realize than they do the front.
Okay,
because the bait fish, the bluegill, everything's
shallow
towards the bank,
right, especially in the summertime and all that.
Especially in the summertime. Now in the wintertime, they're probably
they're
either right up underneath it, sunning on them floats, or they're out in front of it. Then I'll go down the front of it. I'll make a cast down the front of it. And I lied. I make 4 or 5 casts. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Then as I'm coming down the side, I will skip up underneath the dock into the darkest part that I can see, because that's where the fish are probably going to be at, the darkest shadow,
where they can use that shadow kind of as cover.
They can use that shade as an ambush point. It's not sitting there like they're on wood, but it's still an ambush point because they can blend in with the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I come around the front, I'll cast down the front. As I'm coming around the front, if it's got an open slip, I'll pitch to the 2 corners of that slip.
Yep.
And work my way back. And then as I come back around,
and I will tell you that fishing with him, this is not a 20-minute thing. All this is going broom, back, broom. I mean, you're working it.
Yeah.
Because
it's
you're
quick.
like you and Ryan are like power fishermen. You guys hit it.
It's quick. I don't spend more than 4 or 5 minutes on a dock.
Yeah, it's quick. And also to work on your skipping abilities. This man skips better than anybody I've ever personally seen it. I've been in a boat with quite a few good anglers. Ryan can skip really good. He's stupid. I mean, he was skipping scroungers that day. You ever try to skip a scrounger with that big old thing on it?
I struggle now, especially if I'm in the back of the boat with somebody, because I'm worried about hitting their gunnel or something.
Oh, yeah. Definitely if you're in the back of the boat. Now, I watched this joker sit on the side of a boat with an area about 4 inches long and the exact same thing on the other side. And this joker skipped it through this side all the way through the slip, out that hole on the other side of the thing, and then worked it all the way back. I'd kill somebody.
I ring the dinner bell.
Oh, I ring the dinner bell.
Ding.
So, okay, how about this? Give me a good tip for somebody like me who's terrible at skipping.
The best way that I have found to explain it to somebody, if you're right-handed, you're going to, like you're skipping a rock.
Mm-hmm.
Like hold your hand, because you're going to be holding your reel like this to throw. Hold your hand like you've got a rock and get that same angle like you're going to skip a rock across the water. Get that angle and you figure out that roll cast, that roll of the wrist to get that bait to sail across the water and lift as it goes, to keep it up, and it'll skid across the water.
And it takes practice.
Yes, it'll take practice, and it'll take practice with you. Just go to the bank.
Yeah.
Just go to the bank and get that motion down, that roll of the wrist, and that angle of you getting that shoulder down
Right.
and getting it, and then you can work on your aim as it goes on.
But you got to get that motion first.
But once you got to get the motion first. You can't let go. You can't, it's just like skipping a stone. You can't hit the water too quick. You can't hit the water too late.
Okay.
Another thing is once you finally start getting good with it, then start. What I did at the house is I started. I'd put out a plank with 2 buckets, and I'd make it wide enough to where, as I was trying to skip something, I was making sure it was going straight underneath
the plank
of wood, like a dock.
Right.
And was
just doing this out in your yard.
Yeah, just because it'll still skip on the ground.
Right.
I mean, but just lock your reel down a little bit more than you would if you're on the water.
Right.
Until you get that motion done, and then you just got to practice at it. Practice is the biggest thing.
How do you know when to put your thumb on the reel? Because you're doing this with a bait caster. I can skip with a spinning rod.
I never change my reel up as far as when I'm bomb casting or I'm skipping. I don't tighten it down, because if you tighten it down, if you're right-handed, you're going to pull to the left and you're going to hit dock floats when you're aiming at something that's in front of you. You're going to pull to the left and hit what's over here. Or if you're left-handed, you're going to pull to the right. Mm. You have to make it come off the reel as smooth as possible when you let go of it, and you just keep your thumb kind of over top of the line where it just doesn't bird nest real bad.
Yeah. You don't have a special reel, though, with less line for skipping. You use a full, just whatever.
Just a regular
full
reel.
Because that's some advice a lot of people give.
Yeah.
Don't put many on your skipping rod.
Don't tighten, don't lock it down, don't do any of that. Just literally take your reel that you got. I know every fisherman out there knows how to thumb their line when they throw. It's just a little quicker. It's not just throw it out there and let your thumb sit out there, and as it gets close to the put your thumb down kind of thumb it. It's as soon as you do it, your thumb's just staying right there. So
it's just going to be motion memory. You just got to do it a lot.
You just got to do it a lot.
Okay.
And then once you start getting good at that, then you can start getting better at the backhanded, where you hold on to your bait and get your line tight enough, and you can backhand it and backhand skip it, because you're not always going to be in position to skip out.
Yeah, from the forehand side.
So you got to get better at the flipping like this too.
Here's an interesting question,
because
this is going to have a variety of answers. I already know. What trailer, and he's going to show you some things right here, because we've got some examples down here. And there's several different trailers, including a little juice that a lot of you guys may or may not know. So pay attention to this little section right here. What trailer does Farmer throw on a True Grit swim jig? Is it the same with the double tail grub? What brand of jig does he use?
All right. As far as swim jigs go, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm just doing just a regular old swim jig, I have 3 trailers. I have just a regular old swim bait, which everybody knows to throw when you're mimicking bait fish,
like a Kitech or something.
Yes. I also will throw a Z-Crawl Junior on the back of it, because it gives it a little bit more. It's just a weird action, but they eat it.
Right.
And if I want a lot of action, like I'm mimicking a tiny bait ball coming through and it's just everything's going there, I put a Z-Crawl, or not a Z-Crawl, a
twin tail
Rage Crawl on the back of it.
Okay.
And there's a Rage Crawl just sitting there going berserk.
You don't throw a twin tail at all? You don't throw a twin tail Zoom or Yamamoto twin tail grub?
I don't throw the grub. I throw the Menace. It's got a little bit more action than the grub, but I throw the Menace. Oh, and that's another one I'll throw is the single tail grub. I'll throw the single tail grub on the back of a swim jig.
Swim jig. Now let's go ahead and take that question and jump straight to regular jigs.
Regular jigs, I've got it dialed down to about 4 different trailers that I'll throw, maybe 5 if I'm wanting to beef up the profile.
Let's cover that.
If I'm fishing just every day, just going out seeing if they're eating a jig, you can't go wrong with the Gary Yamamoto double tail grubs. Great jig trailers.
And this is on a regular jig.
This is just a regular Arky head football jig. Great trailers. They go on finesse jigs. They go on big Arky head jigs. They'll
a little bit of everything.
They go on everything, and they're very good at mimicking smaller crawfish pinchers and stuff like that.
Yep.
and giving you enough action. And if you want to swim it, they mimic a bluegill very well too, because of
a lot of action.
A lot of action. I like the Zoom Z crawls on the back of a jig.
Yeah,
very well.
Give him that close up, baby, right there.
Where are you at?
There you go, right there.
All right. I like a Zoom Z crawl on the back of a jig. The ribbed profile gives it a little bit beefier profile. And these tails right here give you a lot of kick, a lot of action. This time of year, I really love a Z crawl on the back of my jigs.
Okay.
If your fish are keying in on smaller crawfish, like small, then that's when I'll go to like the Zoom speed crawl.
Okay, yeah.
Just smaller. A regular old speed crawl, a little bit smaller profile, a little bit smaller crawls, and another one that I will go to is an actual like a stick bait. A stick bait. This is the one that it's out there, but a lot of people don't have confidence in it.
Right.
A fish will eat a crawfish with no pinchers faster than they will eat something sitting there trying to defend itself. If it's got no way to defend itself, it's just going to eat it.
Yep.
Taking just a regular old, like the Yamamoto 3-inch Neds, your turd rigs from Z-Man.
Yep.
Rig them up on the back of a jig.
Hold that puppy up that you got over there. You got one.
I got one.
Let's get a little close up of that there. Get it down just a little bit down to the
other way.
There we go. So basically, it's just straight, nothing there. You got a little bit on the body, but nothing there.
The way it sits, is it going to sit in the water kind of? It's upside down, but it's going to kind of sit like that in the water.
Drop it down and go a little bit the other way.
There you go. Look at there.
Trying to figure out where the center of the
I know it's hard.
Think opposite.
A couple times.
It's opposite whatever you see.
Yeah. So, but
now what would make you rig one up like that? Now,
a lot of times when I rig one up like that is when you're sitting there and you've got a bite, okay, and you're throwing a regular jig with a Z crawl or something on the back of it. You swing and you come back with no pinchers at all. Your crawls are gone. That's when I'll sit there and turn over and start throwing that a little bit more, because they're grabbing it at the end of the bait on its crawls to try and keep it from pinching them, and they're just taking the crawls from them. A lot of times when you have fish spitting up crawls, they're not eating the whole crawfish. They're just taking the crawls off of them.
Okay, I never thought about that. Makes sense. So again, basically, when would you use the double tail?
Double tail is just any time of year, wintertime, all of it.
All of it.
You can't go wrong with the double tail grubs. To get confidence in jig fishing, I'd say if you just want one trailer, it'd be the double tails.
Okay, that makes sense. What about chunks?
Chunks, I use chunks in one or two scenarios. I like a chunk in the wintertime when the fish don't want a lot of movement, and I'm dragging it and just barely moving it. I don't want a lot of movement. That's when I use a chunk. Another time I'll use a chunk is when I want, because a lot of your chunks add a lot of beef to a jig. Then I'll pitch it in dirtier water with a chunk.
Just give off a little bit bigger, buff it up.
Okay. I didn't get to the other two trailers. The other trailer that I like to throw is a beaver style trailer. Gives you a thicker profile that if you know they're eating bluegill, you can put a beaver style on.
Right.
And it'll mimic bluegill better than a crawfish because it's a lot beefier profile. And another one that I've started throwing and have had pretty good success throwing, and I'm still playing with it, is the bellows gill.
Oh, okay.
On the back of a jig.
Really?
Because it has the profile of a bait fish.
Right.
But as the jig falls, I've got that skirt moving. So I get the secondary action of like fins moving as that thing falls.
Makes
so
sense.
if they're straight on bluegill, the brim eaters, I will rig up a bellows gill on the back of it. I've been playing with it a little bit.
And done pretty well on it.
Done pretty well. I've caught some good largemouth doing that.
Is that more of a largemouth over
The
a
spot? Well, no, I've caught a 4 and a 4.5 pound spot on Lanier doing that out there deep.
Yeah, out there deep. Yeah,
Out there deep where they're on bluegill right now. I can't believe I'm giving that away.
Give it away. Come on,
we
baby.
gave it. Well, we gave
We
it
talked
away.
about it.
We gave it away last time, but there are so many fish right now spitting up brim
It's crazy.
out there off of them deep brush piles.
Yeah.
It's weird. You sit there and everybody's, oh, they're on herring out there. They're on herring out there. You go out there with a jig or something that mimics a bluegill, and you get it down there close up. Hang on.
Yeah. I'm just going to say, when I fished with Underwood about 3 weeks ago, several of the spots that were caught over timber. We ain't talking about brush, but we're talking about over timber. Actually had bluegill sticking out of their gullet. And that was out of 40 foot of water, or whatever the tops of the trees are.
It's the time of
It's
year.
crazy.
It's the time of year.
It's crazy.
They are eating on everything and anything, getting fat for the winter.
100%. Charles wants to know, let's talk rattles on a jig. Useful, or is it something in the way of the hook set?
At night. I will not put a rattle on a jig unless it's at night. And I barely do it at night either. The only time I'll do it at night is when it is just pitch black. New moon kind of thing. Pitch black.
Just something to give it, just something for them
Just
to locate
something
it.
to kind of locate it a little bit better.
But that's the only time.
No, I won't throw. Even in chocolate milk water, I won't do it.
Okay, all right, makes sense. C-Spa, maybe a little off subject, but when you find shells piled on dock floats, how do you find the bar? So if there's shells around now, he's talking like them little mussels kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like around here, if we really have.
We really don't
bars.
have shell bars.
Gunnersville has them, right?
Gunnersville has them. A lot of times it's you've got some kind of like.
You're gonna have moving water.
Well, you don't really.
Yeah.
Altoona's got down there near 515 Bridge and all that near Blockhouse. That whole thing's just littered with shells, clam shells, snails, all of it. They're
Right.
all there.
But you really don't have a bar, do you?
You don't have a bar. It's not really a bar. They're just there because that's where the most moving water is.
That's just where they ended up.
Yeah. Now, as far as like Gunnersville, Chickamauga, all these Tennessee River lakes, then it's your bar. You got a bar nearby. If you're seeing a lot of shells up on a dock where some type of swimming rodent, an otter or something like that, has gone down there and got them, took them to the dock, broke them open, ate them, you got something nearby.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
But you're gonna find those with your electronics. You can tell a difference between a shell bed or a shell bar versus just regular bottom. Your regular bottom is really dark on your side scan, kind of the darkest.
Right.
But as soon as you pull up on a shell bar, because it's hard bottom, it's going to light up on your screen. It's going to be a lot lighter than the surrounding area.
Okay.
On your screen.
All right, makes sense. And I know, guys, we are way behind on the questions because there's a lot of them tonight. So what's the next one we got? Is it Temples right there? All right, let's go with Temples. We'll start there. Farmer, do you think the rod or line is more important to feeling a jig bite? It's a good question.
That is a very good question.
I'm going to guess you're going to say rod.
I'm going to say rod because everybody fishes different line. Every line has different feel. Seagar's different than Suffix. P-line's different than Suffix. I think it's going to be your rod. You need a good quality rod for jig fishing to be able to feel that bite.
Yeah.
It's a little expensive for my taste, and I've got to fish with one. I do not own one. I got to borrow one for a little while and test it out to see if I wanted one. But my favorite jig rod is the Legend Tournament series of St. Croix. My God, what a rod for jig fishing.
That sensitive?
It's extremely it's more sensitive than your high-end G Loomis.
Really?
And I have fished with an NRX with a jig. And it was the FX, in my opinion, that y'all carried,
right,
were better than an NRX.
I traded an NRX for FX I always thought the FXs were good, but you're saying the St. Croix Legend, that's a whole different ballgame.
The St. Croix Legend Tournament Series are phenomenal jig rods. very, very light rods. They're not heavy, so they're not working on you real hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the sensitivity when you pull up on them is phenomenal. I can sit there and pull up, which I fished a jig enough to where I can pull up and hit something and go, oh, that's rock. Oh, that's a piece of wood. Oh crap, I've got fishing line.
Yeah, that good.
Once you fish a jig long enough, you can.
Yeah, like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. We're gonna start. All right. So are you close back down to the bottom of the comments there?
Yeah, I'm getting on down to the new fresh ones.
Yeah. Okay. So listen, guys, we had to pass over a bunch. I mean, there is a ton of questions. So if we just passed over your question, type it again. We're just trying to catch up because we were running way behind on the questions. There's so many good ones. Derek O. We'll start with the top right there. Derek O's. Let's do that. When do you like a short shank with a high angle weed guard versus a longer shank with less angle?
The high shank is when I'm fishing open water because you got more space
Mm-hmm.
and you got it cut down. Open water is your higher weed guard with the shorter shank, but your longer one that's kind of down closer to the hook, I like is when the one I pitch through stuff. It's kind of like the True Grit angle here. It's got a full weed guard and it is down closer to the hook.
Yeah.
That's more of my when I'm pitching wood. But if I'm just around gravel rock and the sparse stump here or there, that's when I like the more open one.
George wants to know, do you ever spread the weed guard out on your jigs or trim them? You know, some guys will trim them into V's and
ask him that.
all kinds of questions.
That gets into what rod and setup you're more comfortable with. Trimming your weed guard, you're bumping your line down. You're bumping your setup down. Fishing a 3/8 ounce jig on a medium action rod.
Mm-hmm.
That's when your fish are line shy. You're not fishing 17, 20 pound.
Right.
You're fishing 10, 12.
Right.
And you're needing enough oomph to penetrate with that hook. That's when you start trimming your weed guards. Other than that, I don't ever touch my weed guards.
Makes sense. So let's see.
Did he spread them?
Huh? Do you spread them?
I don't spread my weed guards.
Pop up, Tony right there on the top. One more right up above that. So we're back to kind of pit. This is how far behind we are, guys, with the questions. Do you do anything with tape or anything kind of when you're skipping? You don't mess with any of that. Especially, what about when you're trying to learn? Somebody's trying to learn.
When you're trying to learn,
pull out enough.
Give yourself 50, 60 feet and then take you some electrician's tape. Or better yet, don't do electrician's tape, do painter's tape because it doesn't mess with your line as bad.
Yeah, don't put as much glue on it.
Yeah.
Michael wants to know, do you trim those Z-crawls?
I will bite the end off of them.
Like the first knuckle kind of thing.
Yeah, I bite most of my trailers.
You do. You start
and
like
you're
on the
using a
double
Z-Crawl Junior, right?
Yes,
not the full size.
Juniors.
Make sure they understand
that's a
that.
good point. I didn't mention that. It's the Z-Crawl Juniors. It's not the full size Z-Crawls.
Right. Okay.
But I'll do kind of a little demonstration with the Speed Crawl. It's that first knuckle on the bottom side of the hair. I just sit there, take it off, bite it off, and then rig it up on my jig like so.
Yeah, give him a tight on that so everybody can see it.
Go to your right.
To your right. There you go.
I like my crawls to come right out past my skirt. Like that.
Yeah, that's about right there. So there you go. Perfect example right there. All right, let's scroll on down to the next question. We got he spits. He's not a swallower. He's a spitter.
Spitters or quitters.
Where are we at? Do we have any? How about Guy B right there? I may have missed this, but do you set the hook when you feel the first tick?
I do not set the hook on the first tick. I wait until it's just solid pressure.
Okay.
Because that goes back to I never lose connection with my jig. If I'm sitting there feeling it like that, what I've always called the gun, or is it the machine gun bite, that
right.
I don't set the hook. I just sit there and wait. And when it gets solid, it's steady. swing.
Okay. I saw one. So going up a couple. I think there was one. Oh, he was from Facebook. Clarence Stowers. Do you ever Texas rig a trailer on a jig?
No, I do not.
Yeah, I don't know too many down here. Tristan, to answer your question, fluoro or braid, it's fluoro for him. Fluoro for him all the way. Derek O, hook gap. When do you like a shorter shank? Oh, we just read that one, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, we did that. Let's go on down. Tristan's again, we just answered that. Far Dog, my buddy from Oklahoma. What is your year-round go-to jig color if you just had one color? And I already know it. You can go ahead and show
It's
it.
It's a true grit jig color, and it's my signature series. It's the Farmer Special. It's just a green pumpkin jig with a little accents of orange in it. I can change the color of this jig with trailers. I don't have to worry about having 100 jig colors. I can just change everything with a trailer.
It's a couple. It's some green pumpkin, barbed wire, green pumpkin, and then a little bit of what they call grassy GP, or used to be called whiskey.
It used to be called whiskey.
Yeah,
and that's it.
And I got them on the site.
Hang on, there you go. Put it over and get a close up.
Yeah. So if you want me to tie you some up, you can go to fngO.com.
Another one that I throw a lot throughout the year is Ryan's too. It's the chef special.
Chef special. Some people call it the cheat code. We had guys start calling it the cheat code up here because they said that jig right there, especially on Lanier, on a spotted bass lake, there's something about purple.
Yeah.
There's just something about purple in a jig.
I use
and it's available.
I use mine and I use Ryan's
Mm-hmm.
more than I use any other color.
Yep.
Because I can do the same thing with both of them. His has purple accents, mine has orange accents, and I can change the color of those jigs with trailers.
Yeah, and
it's the same with both of them.
I would say of the jigs that I tie now, out of every 100, 70 are one of those two. 70% of the jigs that I tie are one of those two colors, and with a couple other ones we do, they're okay. But those two right there, it's not even close.
Around here, you can't go wrong with just a green pumpkin with an accent color.
Yeah.
And
if you like them and you want me to add a little chartreuse, you can put a little note in there. I can, or hit me up on Facebook.
Another good one for Clearwater Lakes is the Fall Crawl because it's like a green pumpkin with orange accents. But if you're, say, on Oconee or Sinclair where you got dirtier water, black and blue, you can't go wrong with black and blue.
I know some guys that throw black and blue year round, no matter what kind of body of water they're on. That's just a colored jig. They'll throw it on in there.
Profile.
Yeah, it's just a profile.
Yeah.
But they swear by that right there.
It's the same thing with, like, I would actually, if I was on Oconee, I would throw Ryan's before I threw mine because his has that purple. It gives it a little bit darker profile.
Mm-hmm.
If I got cleaner water, I'll go back to mine.
Yeah.
But it's just let the water and the conditions tell you what to throw.
Yeah.
Around North Georgia and the Southeast, you cannot go wrong with green pumpkin.
You can't.
If you didn't know anything about jig fishing and you just wanted to go buy a handful of jigs, go buy straight green pumpkin and a green pumpkin trailer and a something like maybe what's that color? Candy. Green pumpkin candy to give you some little accents.
Yeah. That's the same with a worm.
And just go.
Yeah, it's the same thing with a worm.
Yeah.
If you only pick one color, Cinco or something for the rest of your life to throw, you can't go wrong with green pumpkin.
You'll catch fish in the Southeast on a green pumpkin jig no matter where you go.
Yeah, that's for sure. So he says in Oklahoma, his favorite is a green pumpkin purple.
Yes.
And then other guys here like green pumpkin orange swirl. So, but it's your green pumpkin with your accent. And if you look at most crawfish, majority of the year they're going to be green with some.
They've got a green pumpkin look. They've got a green pumpkin or pumpkin look with some kind of accent color. Either it be blue, purple, orange, red.
Right. For sure.
Unless you're on Gunnersville, they're black and red.
Right. And so then, yeah, right. Yeah, I know.
And they look like lobsters that are that big.
Yeah, that's a little different. Tristan says, how far do you trim the skirt when you get them out of the pack? I tell you, we went over this a little earlier. I trim all of the True Grit jigs one knuckle. Pretty much. I pull it tight. I trim it one knuckle past the hook. I trim them all right there, which is pretty much what him and Ryan like right out of the pack. So that's kind of the way we do it.
I start saying with the True Grit jigs, I don't have to trim them. I don't have to mess with them unless I really want a really short
Yeah.
skirt to get a lot of action when that thing hits the bottom and it immediately spreads out.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, I just do it right out of the pack.
That's right there. So let's see. Do you dip it in JJ? Seems like it makes a difference at time.
I will spike my craws in it. I
Mhm.
will and the only reason I do that, especially around here, we got those Chattahoochee craws. Every one of them, no matter what time of year, they've got orange tips. They're orange year round on the tips. So when you tip a trailer, that's why only time I tip my trailers is if I'm targeting directly at.
Yeah.
But I also, I take that back. I do it with bluegill too because they have a chartreuse tail.
Yeah. I would say just seemingly the way it goes out of the store. Wintertime, a little bit of orange, the rest of the year, chartreuse.
If I had to tell somebody one thing about dipping your trailers, do not dip them too much. Do not overload them.
Yes.
Because if you overload them, a lot of times it'll scare more fish than you catch. Most crawfish and most brim, it's just the very tips of their tails, the very tips of their craws that are color changed.
Yeah, not to mention if you use JJ's, that thing stinks. You might get that stuff out of your boat. It ain't coming out.
I love JJ's. Love JJ's. I'd rather have it than spike it. I hate their containers.
You would think, and they'll blow up on you too.
Yes, I hate their containers.
Yeah.
I will actually take an old bottle of Spike It or a new bottle. I've done this before. I went and bought a new bottle of Spike It and dumped it.
To put the JJ's in there?
Put JJ's in it.
There's something about it. So, Far Dog, listen, if you want, hey, we can put some jigs up there for you. I will tell you what I'm doing on the website because we're rebuilding it all. I am adding, and over the next week, I'll add every single color jig that we got on there because it's 38 of them, depending on the lakes. We've got some that are lake specific. So they'll be up there within the next week. But right now, in the new section, if you go on fngo.com, go over to the store, hit True Grit Jigs, and you'll see those two up because I put them on there today, and then I'll be adding more.
I've gotten so bad now.
Yeah,
I go and buy the pins and just draw it on the craws where I want it. I don't dip them down in the bottles. I don't dip them in the caps. I've literally gone and got the highlighter pins and just draw them where I want it.
Right. So Far Dog's asking me this question, and I'll try to answer, but I believe Farmer or maybe even Ryan in the comment would be far more qualified. Is living rubber versus old school round rubber better on a swim jig?
It's better on a
regular
jig.
I don't think it matters at all on a swim jig because you're moving it. Now, if you're working it like a regular jig, maybe, but that's more of your bottom contact, the old school rubber, those kind of the living rubber and all that.
Living rubber, I like living rubber in cold water.
Mm-hmm. And that's generally cold, when somebody wants them.
Silicone does not do well in cold water.
Right.
It does not move.
If you want that spread.
If you want the movement and everything, living rubber, the old school rubber.
Yeah.
Silicone skirts do not do well in cold water or cold conditions. They don't move.
Right. If you're wanting your jig, to sit there, but if you're moving your jig, dragging it, I don't know that it matters so much. This is only on the paws, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So, let's see. What is the best trade? Let's see. He's lying. Ryan says can't answer that. Never tried it, but it sounds interesting. He's full of crap.
I ain't never put one on a swim jig either because I've never thought of it. I wouldn't think because it's sitting there, you're swimming it.
It's compacting.
It's pinned, so I don't know.
But I guess if you do that Alabama shake or whatever, and you
sit there and move,
you sit there,
Alabama shake,
whatever they call it.
It started in North Carolina,
but they call it the Alabama.
They call it the Alabama shake, but it started in North Carolina
because anything goofy looking definitely comes from Alabama. What is the best trailer to use in the fall? And so I would think that also depends on what you're trying to do.
If I were to pick two, it'd be the Z-Craw Junior. Because right now they're eating on everything, the Z-Craw Junior mimics bluegill, it mimics crawfish, it mimics a bunch of stuff in the water. I'd use it, and I would use either a Speed Craw or a Yamamoto trailer.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with any of those.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys, if you scroll back down, what you guys are talking about with just the tip, just that. That's what she says.
It's because I was telling them not to dip too much of the craws in.
Oh, is that what it is? Listen, Coker, I know you're sitting there on your job, buddy, right now. You're at work. You shouldn't be thinking that way. Good question from JP right there. When do you downsize? In late fall and winter, especially spotted bass, I like using light hair jigs. Used to tie my own with deer or fox hair. Boy, you're an overachiever right there. That's good.
I think this was covered in one of your later video or your earlier videos.
I've done so many, I don't remember.
It's how crawfish move in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
Your juveniles, your smaller ones, are very prone to not burying in the mud.
We did.
Like your big ones are in
That's
the
right.
wintertime.
Yep.
So in the wintertime and the colder months, that's when I predominantly go to the smaller size jigs, the finesse jigs, the y'all's ball head jig, the little spotty, the Kitech. That's when I pull back and I predominantly use the finesse jigs.
Right.
The rest of the year, they're eating small crawfish just like they're eating big crawfish throughout the year. You just got to figure out which one works best.
Right at that time.
2 weeks ago, I couldn't get them to touch a full-size jig. Or 3 weeks ago, I couldn't get them to touch a full-size jig. They wanted the smaller ball head jig. It's all they touched with a speed crawl on the back of it that had a smaller profile. When I went out that day during that kayak tournament, just goofing off, I was throwing the full-size farmers with a Z-crawl on the back of it with the crawls dipped in chartreuse, and they were choking the big jig. Wouldn't touch the small jig.
Speaking of which, you said the kayak tournament. There was a comment or a question, one of the ones we passed. How did it feel to be what we would call a kind of a rookie kayak angler and to jump in that kayak tournament and just absolutely spank, and I mean spank, some of them kayak guys out there? And I only say that because we know some of you guys. But I
didn't spank nobody.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I went out there.
I believe they thought they were going to spank you.
Well, they had me spanked up until that last day I went out. And I caught a 4 and a 6, and the tide changed.
How does that make you feel being I would consider a glitter rocket angler, to get on the old kayak and just absolutely.
I mean, fishing's fishing.
Yeah, I know it, but it's fun giving them guys hell.
Fishing's fishing. I mean, no matter where you go, kayak, bass boat.
That's
I
right.
mean, my brother-in-law fishes out of a pontoon. If you got a boat, or you get even the bank guys, you just wet a line. Fishing's fishing.
That's right. But now look at me and be honest.
Oh, it felt pretty good.
Yeah. I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Like
it felt pretty good to be getting called out like I was, because what I did is I entered it to be just kind of donate the $60 to the Helene recovery or whatnot.
Yeah, right.
And I wasn't going to fish. I was just here.
Yeah.
And then a couple of them saw my name and started talking smack.
That's now we're getting into it.
Yeah. And
they was talking shit's what they was doing. You said,
all right.
Now just go out and catch me a 4 and a 6. No big deal. He pulled out that, but listen, we love you, kayak guys. You guys know we do. There was Coonan Paul said something about pulling back the old Coonan crawl. I actually ordered the stuff to make the Coonan crawl again.
That's a good looking jig.
It's got some bluish and some orange in it.
That is the Coonan crawl. Like I think
I got it coming back, baby.
Is a smallmouth magnet.
It is coming back. Do you buy into the bait fuel craze? No.
I do not. I don't ever scent my jigs. I don't ever scent my jigs, even with the old the old crawl scent that you can buy at Walmart that everybody's like, oh, you got to scent you. I don't scent anything.
I would say they need to sell it on adult websites, because that is the slickest, greasiest stuff I've ever. I poured some in a bag of worms one time, and I couldn't hold on to the worms the next day to put them on a daggum screw lock shaky head. I couldn't hold it. I had to put them between my legs and basically just squeeze all that stuff off of it. So how cold is cold? When we're talking about, I guess,
water temp in the mid to low 40s.
Oh, you're talking about cold.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you use hair jigs and go lightweight late fall, winter for spotted bass? I like to use light hair jigs with Zoom swimming chunks.
I like a hair jig.
Did I ask that question already? Or I asked one that
somebody asked about a hair jig, but he didn't answer. Just went to the smaller jigs.
Yeah.
He was more about the profile.
Yeah. I use hair jigs if I'm just targeting straight bait fish eaters. Lanier like Chickamauga, I don't get away from the preacher's jig, the big one, because they're eating on the herring.
What about that big ass, the one
The big
Cruz put
feather.
up?
They call it the big feather.
What's that big jig? Or was it the chatterbait? What was it, that one that's got like a shark hook on the back of it? Didn't Cruz design it?
Oh, yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Missile baits.
Yeah, no. You won't
My
catch me throwing it.
Lord.
No, I won't throw
I think
that.
that thing's got like a gaff hook on
It
the back
does
of it.
have
It looks
a
like
gaff.
something from deep sea
But-
fishing.
Yes.
I like a hair jig around this time of year because you still get that pulse from
Mhm.
the hair, but it's
Is it more subtle?
a lot more subtle than a lot of stuff you throw out there. That's one of them things that the hair jig bite is a deep water bite. I've never been able to get it to do shallow water, but deep water, the hair jig seems to work.
All right.
really
So
well.
Discover Bass wants to know, what about marabou jigs? How do you work those small little jigs? I know people in the north use them a lot. Is that similar to what Dana uses?
Is the marabou jigs? Is that a float and fly?
Hell,
Is
I
that
don't
the
know.
little bitty?
I bet it is, because he's talking about small.
I've never been able. I've tried to fish it. I can't figure it out because I won't put the time in to figure out a float and fly.
It works on Carter's.
Oh, it works great in the wintertime on every lake around here. People catch monsters on it.
Yeah, but I just, it takes a while.
But I'm sitting here going, am I going to sit here and watch a bobber, or can I throw a Demiki rig out here and catch these ditch fish and be done with it?
Right. Oh, Dane wants to know if the Murphinator is coming back. No.
If you're a carp fisherman, buy a Murphinator.
That it might be the ugliest jig we've ever made, and he says he catches fish on it, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
He does. It's orange fish. It's carp.
It's
goldfish.
carp. Is that what it is? That is the ugliest. But we might have special edition Murphinator only 1 week out of the year, and hope like hell nobody orders it. I don't
even think you remember the colors to put it together.
It was black,
because it had
purple, pink,
it had baby blue.
baby
in it.
blue.
It
It didn't look like any damn thing in the water at all. But he did.
Nothing against Murphy,
Oh yeah, no,
because he'll fish it to the day he dies. He will continue.
For those that want to know, we were talking about Andrew Murphy. Okay, that is, where's he live? Canton Way?
Yeah, he's down there towards Canton.
Yeah,
I mean, the boy can fish just as good as a lot can. But
That's
jig,
the ugliest. Oh,
we give him crap. So much crap. He sat there and he said he was going to go up there, and I can't remember if Ryan went with us to Notley when we went, but he said he was going to beat mine and Ryan's jig with his. And he went up there and he said he locked into a big and pulled it out of a dang carp.
What is
A carp ate it. And I was like, yeah, you beat us all right.
So Far Dog says, Danny, I did learn something recently on my flutter spoon hook. Screw a feather, tie mallard feathers on that sucker. They repel water and breathe. Well, down here in the South, and I know it's not jig related, but a lot of guys will always take their Sebills at some of those style baits, and they will take the back treble off, put a feathered treble on it. A lot of top water baits do that.
You get more action out of Seville.
Oh, there you go. Ryan remembers it. It's got cow tongue and Carolina blue in it.
Yeah,
It's ugly. And he said that marabou is like a woolly booger on a lead head, but more feather and hair than anything. So, yeah, whatever. And it also had Army GP red and Army GP purple flake. All I know is it was ugly as hell, but he liked that color.
He did. And he every time he gets one, he wants that one.
He wants that. And so, but I hope like hell I never have to tie one. So Cameron says that Mr. Bates monster jig has a 10 alt hook. And then Ryan said there's one in the bargain bin at Hammond's. I mean, listen, could you see just an Alatuna spot? You thought he would run from that damn jig. I mean, that's a monstrosity.
I know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Murphy's going to watch this.
And
He's gonna send me a picture in the next 2 days, 3 days of a fish with that jig in its mouth.
Because he caught it on a damn Kitech and stuck the jig in his mouth.
Yeah.
It's still a jig. That jig in the fish's mouth. So
that ain't good. All right, guys, listen. So, well, we still got comments. We ain't caught up. I know I missed some questions. So, how about Tristan's down at the bottom? When you throw it, do I work it all the way back to the boat or halfway? And I'm going to assume we're talking about a jig.
Yeah. I don't work one all the way to the back of the boat.
No, you give it first 10 foot before you throw.
I'll work it to where when you start losing contact with the bottom consistently, when you just barely move it and you're bringing it up,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you reel it in.
Yeah, Far Dog says, I'll take 20 Murphys. Sounds awesome. You ain't ordering them on my website. Yeah. Listen, I don't
You
think
come
you'll
up here and
ever-
time your darn self.
Yeah,
What
you
he
come on down
said.
here to Georgia and I'll give you the material and
Yeah.
you can time.
Fish catchers is what those things are.
Now, let me ask you this, because a lot of guys will talk about this, maybe not tonight in questions, but I know if Stephen Barday was on here, he would say that a banded jig is no better or is no worse or whatever than a tied jig. Now, I like the tie. I don't like the band because I think bands eventually wear out. But is there a difference actually in what the skirt does between a banded jig and a copper tied jig?
Well, you get more of an action out of a tied jig than you get out of a banded jig. A banded jig, your skirt seems to lay more flat.
Is that because it's a little wider and it's holding it tighter?
It's holding it. It's got more of a wide angle, or not angle, but a wide base to it, and it will literally make the lower skirt, just lay flat. A tied is you're actually pinching down and making the rubber stand up when you pinch down on it, so your skirt gets a little more action to it.
Okay, makes sense. Let's see. Does Farmer have a preference to fish the jig on the north or south end of Lanier?
Jig works.
He works everywhere.
Everywhere on Lanier.
Yeah.
If I'm targeting straight largemouth, well, you can catch largemouth on the south end just as easy as you can on the north end.
A lot of people don't realize that. What? You want him to hush? Ken's back there like, oh, don't say that.
If you find, well, we'll say it this way: if you find a dock around in a pocket that has any type of brush, which there are thousands of these docks on Lanier that have had brush on them, that's where you're going.
Ken's about to have a damn heart attack back there.
That's where you're going to find. That's where you're going to find your largemouth.
Is Ken vapor locking
back there? He's like, we're gonna have a stern talking to after this show.
I can give the dock float thing away too if you want me to.
Huh? The dock float
What's the
thing.
dock float
What's
thing?
the dock float thing?
Yeah, what's the dock float thing?
All right. A lot of times I don't throw a 1/4 ounce. This is the only time I'll throw a 1/4 ounce. If you've ever paid attention to,
I'm just doing this because he is going to fuss at me so much.
If you've ever paid attention to any bait fish or a bluegill around dock getting chased by bass, what do? They try to nose up to that float and disappear.
Yeah.
Same thing on a laydown. They try to nose up to that cover and disappear. Well, with a 1/4 ounce and a big enough trailer, a swim jig trailer, like the big Alberts or whatnot, the old big
the
single tail grub,
yeah,
and you can bounce that thing underneath the dock up onto the dock float itself like it's trying to get away, and those bass will come up and just crush it.
That sound about right, Ken?
Go ahead and say gator tail while you're at it.
And then
it's funny.
Let's see if I can make him mad again.
You keep thinking so. So Ryan Sheffield want me to tell you, Ken, just keep chunking your buzz bait. Just keep chunking the buzz bait. Dane says, huh? That works too. Jonathan Farmer can throw a jig on the bank and catch bass. I've witnessed it for several years. He has more confidence in a jig than he does anything else. That does go to the crux of throwing a jig, because that's one of the things. Like, I've caught bass on a jig. It is not what I would say one of my confidence baits, because I feel like if I go down a section or whatever and I'm not getting bit, I can pull out that wacky worm or I can pull out a shaky head. But I will say this: I think on an average size of the fish you catch on a jig, they're bigger than what you would catch on a worm.
Yeah, that's
you may not catch as many, but what you catch is better.
That's why I throw a jig. In a tournament situation, and you'll hear this from a lot of guys, you're not out there to catch quantity. You're not out there to catch numbers.
This ain't MLF or nothing like that.
You're out there to catch the biggest ones you think you can catch.
Mm-hmm.
And my confidence bait to catch big ones is a jig, because I can mimic all kinds of prey items with that. I can trigger that predatory instinct of a bass with a jig, in my opinion, better than most baits all year. Now, this is all year. This is not saying
there are times when you throw.
This is not saying like during the herring spawn that a Sebile or a double buzz or something like that, it's not going to be better. Or in the pre-spawn, one of my favorite baits to throw in the pre-spawn is either going to be a Spro rock crawler or a Rapala DT8 in Demon.
Yeah, you like that color.
I love Demon in the February, March. I will not put it down.
Right. But if you wanted to fish a jig, you can still catch fish.
Yes.
There's just better options.
There are better
so
options.
many ways.
Yeah, you can.
But you can fish a jig so many ways. You can swim it, you can hop it, you can drag it, you can vertical fish one if you want to.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of guys in the electric world who will chunk a jig out. They're looking at bass that are suspended on their forward-facing sonar, and it can be a peanut butter and jelly, whatever. They'll throw it out, and instead of letting it sink to the bottom, they'll rip it right by them. They'll take an Arky style. So that way they can, if they want to hit the bottom, they can bump it. But if they see them suspended, they'll throw down to them and rip it over the top of them. It's very versatile.
I've noticed here lately when I cannot get those fish to come up after a minnow style bait, and this is like on Lanier, out of a brush pile, and I toss a jig out there, and it's sinking down, and you can watch them start to raise up. As soon as they move, engage that reel, make that thing move. Yeah, they'll come up and crush it.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of, that's basically the same technique guys are using flukes and doing that as it goes down.
It's the same thing with the jig, but you're mimicking bluegill over crawfish
at that point. Tristan wants to know, I'm learning, would you throw a jig more in the river or main lake on Allatoona this time of year? And I really want to know this answer because I got a tournament on Allatoona Saturday.
I would throw it everywhere this time.
That's what you told me. Yeah.
Target laydowns, brush piles, and rock.
I'll be honest, he's not lying because I said, Farmer, Allatoona, give me some help. That's exactly what he told me. So what he told you is like, he goes, hit every piece of structure you can with a jig at some point during that day. I mean, that's what
every piece of structure you can hit in a day, hit it with a jig.
And like Ryan said, you just need 5.
Yeah.
In a tournament setting.
Tournament setting, all you need is 5. If you've got another man in the boat, let them fish the worm. Let them fish for the 12, 13, 14 inches with a worm. I'm not saying you can't catch a 6-7 pounder on a worm because it's done every day.
Yeah.
But with a jig, I'm targeting those 17, 18, 19, almost 20-inch fish that are 4 to 5, 6 pounds with a jig more than I am fishing with a worm.
Yeah, I get that 100%. Let's see. So with all the wacky rig and shaky head talk, I do belong in a kayak. I'm going to get in it. I promise you, I'm going to get in it. Farmer got me on the jig bite. I can't put it down. You know, I have 3 rods tied up with the jig with jigs for 2 weeks now. And Magnum hit worm on a shaky head and inch fish is what Ryan says. So
yes,
you know,
inch fish.
Hey, that is them kayaker guys. That should be more what they're targeting.
You can fish a jig just as good in a kayak as you can a bass boat.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Your hook set's a little different.
That's right.
I think Nathan Skinner's got one out there with the best kayak hook set on a jig I've seen yet. He jumps and out of his seat, he jumps.
He does. He really? You're talking about ass off the seat?
Yeah, his ass comes off the seat. It's setting the hook.
Listen. We ain't kayak boys yet. I just own one now.
I am not no yak boy. I'm sitting there. All I'm sitting there saying about the 16, 17, 18 inchers is because that's your bigger style fish. That when Lanier, to be example, you have to catch a 15 incher to be a keeper in a bass boat tournament. 14. I thought it was 15.
14.
Okay, it's 14.
But still, well, what's an inch?
Yeah.
Ask my wife.
He's been throwing them fish back. I've
been throwing them fish back. I'm like, that ain't okay.
He'd be like, damn, 14 and a half inch. No, that's legal.
Yeah.
14.
I still go by pounds.
Right. I get you. Oh, 100%.
Because what was it during that kayak tournament or whatever, when I caught that big one and I had to measure it, I was like, I need to know what it weighs. I had my scale right there.
100%.
And pulled my scale out and went, ooh.
Yeah.
602.
Yeah. And everybody else is like, 21 3/4.
Yeah,
what was the length? What was it? Just out of curiosity. 602 was what?
It was 21 3/4. It's almost 22
My
inches.
gosh, look, check that out.
It was almost 22 inches long, but it was 602.
Tristan wants to know what size jig this time of year.
3/8, full size jig.
Yeah.
I would have, like I said, I'd have 3 jigs tied on, and it could be any of your jigs. It could be football. I want an Arky because, like I said, it's my 4-wheel drive. It's a 4-wheel drive jig, goes through everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you're seeing a lot on the flats, football.
Right.
If you're not getting bit or you're getting short strikes on your full-size jig, ball head finesse jig.
Yeah.
And a swim jig, a white swim jig. Because this time of year, there's so much bait in the backs of these creeks. I can swim a swim jig through the gnarliest stuff, targeting the biggest fish with a swim jig.
I've watched you. Remember that time you and I went fishing on there, you were throwing that swim jig back. I mean, you would throw it in like 5 trees or blow dead in the back of a creek, and he's throwing that joker right in the middle of them.
Yep.
So
bring it, and I caught one out back there too.
All right, so real quick, let's see what size hooks do I use in my jigs. We have Gamakatsu, and because I have a man that pours them now, the quarter and the 3/8 are 4/0 Gamakatsus, and the halves are 5/0 Gamakatsus. Ken Pruitt, ever use your forward-facing sonar around a dock and throw a jig in there to see who show themselves? What the hell does that mean?
Well, if they're tucked up in the shadows and they're hugging that dock bill,
Oh, if they're hugging it
that guy over there throws a jig in there, you got your forward-facing sonar in there,
like a crappy guy would.
they might come out and chase
The-
you.
They'll move it. Yeah, you can see
Oh,
it.
so what he's doing is like trying to get you to give up one of your secrets now, sir. You're
Yeah.
trading.
This may or may not have taken place on
I will do
Gunnersville.
that, and the way the fish reacts tells me if I'm going to be able to get that fish to bite or not.
Oh,
Because
yes.
a jig is notorious for pulling fish to it.
Almost kind of like a big glide bait.
It will come at least look at it.
Yeah. And you'd be like,
Um,
oh, there he is.
What was it? I was talking to Dane Hunter. They had the ABA over the weekend.
Yep.
Up there. Congrats to Dalton Tankersley. He caught a tank of a largemouth.
It was a big one.
It was 898. It was almost a 9-pounder. A big one.
On Lanier.
On Lanier.
Mm-hmm.
In a shallow brush pile. But he sat there and Alex Pierce was out there with him. They had to co-angler together because Dane's boat's out of commission. And he sat there and was doing that, watching up underneath a dock that is notorious to have some big fish under it because it's got a brush pile underneath it. That happened to be where I caught those 2 big ones during the kayak tournament. And a big one swam out and picked up Alex's jig as it fell. But because Alex, like I said, had lost complete contact with his jig, didn't know it was there. And Dane says, he's got it. He's swimming with it. He reeled down to pick it up and he felt him. And when he felt him, he felt that.
And spit it out.
It was a big enough bass 25 feet away that he said he could sit there and see the tail do this.
Oh,
That was 5+.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So Randy hates us now because we talk. Listen,
Uncle
you know what?
Randy.
Listen, you know what's funny about Randy fussing about technology and fishing? That he's saying that shit while he's on his new iPhone or new, GoPro, using technology and then putting it on a technical, a platform that you watch on technology on your computer and everything to fuss about technology. So when it serves him, it's okay. But if it's against fishing, it's not okay. That's the way I figure with Randy. So it doesn't make any sense. One last question, go up. It was from Jonah. My buddy Jonah right up there. Go up right there. Alatoona tips around Sweetwater Creek. I'm not familiar with Sweetwater Creek. So we're going to let that be the last question of the night.
Sweetwater Creek.
Pray.
Yeah, pray.
Pray, is it tough?
No, it's not tough. It just gets hammered.
Oh, a lot of pressure on it. So
It gets a lot of pressure.
grind.
And there's not, and as far as the little bit I fished around it, there's not that much just to fish besides docks. There's rock, but
not a lot of contour changes and stuff like that.
if it's where I'm thinking of,
Okay.
I may be wrong.
Yeah.
I may be thinking of a different creek.
Jonah, just keep grinding on it.
Yeah,
fish around till you find something.
just take your Altoona special baits, your shaky head, some type of little swim bait, and then the Bar Day special, the Ned rig, and just go after them.
Yeah, Ned rig right there. So all right. So with that, we've gone over the 2-hour mark. You know, it's past Kevin's bedtime. We got to get him home. Make sure we get you home to Miss Terry safe.
It's just me. She's in Florida.
She's in Florida?
Yep.
You going to the club?
Nope.
Where you going? You going to gamble in Murphy?
No, I'm going to get my tackle ready for Saturday. I got to turn them on Sinclair.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
He's going to go tie on a jig.
Got to go tie on the jig. Black and blue
I
for
don't have any
Sinclair.
farmer's jigs. I was going to get some tonight before I left. You got some tied up, I hope. I don't want you to have to stay too late.
Well, Sinclair's
I got all
dirty
that, baby.
water, ain't it?
Huh?
Sinclair's dirty water, ain't it?
Right now, it's 3 to 4 feet clear.
Oh,
Sinclair is. Oh, that's different.
They haven't had any rain, no water running. It is clear.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
I know
after
the
show.
two I'd be throwing.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, again, if you want either one of those two jigs we've been talking about, the Farmer Special or the Chef/cheat code, they're on the website. Just hit the True Grit jigs. And again, over the next week, you're going to see a bunch more colors. He said throw a buzzbait all day.
That's what we got.
Yeah. So appreciate your compliments, guys. Listen, I'm sure we missed some questions because there was an absolute ton of them, but I believe we answered a lot of questions. So Jonathan, thank you for coming up here, especially on short notice.
I like what Ryan says.
What's that?
Buzzbait
all day, and it'll work. So best
Right
thing,
now.
thing to do with the jig is tie it on and just go fish it. Just go fish it. So again, Jonathan, thank you. Tim, you did a hell of a job back there. As always, you know, as hard as I make you work.
I know, man. Y'all killing me sometimes, but we had good comments and we've had a lot of viewers tonight.
Yeah, that's why Kevin feeds you before the show, so that way you'll be in tip-top peak male performance back
Absolutely.
there. Guys, listen, hey, don't forget, go sign up for that Toys for Tots tournament. It's a big thing. It's really important for me. I want you guys to go by Buford Dam Bait and Tackle if you can. It's a great little shop on Buford Dam Road. Go in there, tell Dave you saw us on the show. Go in there, shop local. Hey, they got some good stuff. They got some True Grit jigs in there. Go in there, shop, but sign up for the Toys for Tots tournament and keep watching Fish North Georgia because now we're getting into November. We're getting in that push. And again, remember, the order that you sign up is your blast off. So if you want that early blast off, you want to get to that spot before everybody, sign up now. So with that, you guys, if you're fishing this weekend, number one, as always, be safe. Number two, enjoy your time. Tristan, you want that camo hat? We can work on that, dog. I got them on the site. So go on there and order you, and I'll send you one like that. But you guys be safe. We'll be back Tuesday night with the Tuesday night crew. It's going to be Halloween. We're going to be dressed up. I don't know what as just yet, but we're going to have fun. I'll put out what we're going to be talking about.
Homer Simpson.
You know, I do have what's the fat kid from South Park?
Hartman.
Yeah,
Cartman. I got a big old Cartman costume. I could wear
You
that.
would make a good Cartman.
Respect my authority, bitch. There you go. So, all right. You guys go. We will see you on the next, and have a great weekend.